Chapter 43. Surnamed Feng, female, comparing her age. Yen Zhaoge recalled for a long time before finally recalling a vague piece of information. The Sacred Sun Clan had been the first sacred ground to discover the method of controlling the Extremine crown, and also the first sacred ground to begin collecting maidens of Extremine. Initially, the Sacred Sun Clan had kept the news strictly under wraps, keeping it confidential. The other sacred grounds had not known the specific information regarding the maidens of Extremine that the Sacred Sun Clan had raised. Broad Creed Mountain and the other sacred grounds had collected it for a long time, but the valuable information had also been few and far between. The Sacred Sun Clan's maiden of Extremine was a female disciple called Feng Muge. Sadly, other than her name, there had been no other valuable information, not even her appearance or any special characteristics. However, 2 years ago, when the first Extremine bout had been held, it had been Meng Wan who had soared into the world. After that, the rumors regarding Feng Muge had been thought to be a smokescreen that the Sacred Sun Clan itself had spread. However, looking at the Feng Yunsheng before him now, Yen Zhaoge inevitably made some connections. If it was a maiden of Extremine who could help Broad Creed Mountain obtain the Extremine crown, her weight would naturally be completely different from that of the other Sacred Sun Clan disciples who had betrayed the clan. The rarer something is, the greater its value. The Sacred Sun Clan had Meng Wan, but Broad Creed Mountain had not had a maiden of Extremine till now. Before escaping from the clan, Feng Muge was already Feng Yunsheng. However, hearing Feng Yunsheng's words, looking at her expression again, Yen Zhaoge's heart instantly sunk slightly. The other party's words clearly did not mean that she was cutting off the past and bidding farewell to the Sacred Sun Clan. Your Extremine physique, something happened to it. Yen Zhaoge frowned, asking, before escaping from the Sacred Sun Clan, you already lost your Extremine physique? Thinking carefully, this was very likely. Otherwise, the Sacred Sun Clan would not have allowed a maiden of Extremine to wander outside. Even if they already had Meng Wan, they could not tolerate the possibility of Feng Yunsheng joining another Sacred Sun Clan. At the same time, even if they already had Meng Wan, the Sacred Sun Clan would still put in effort to raise Feng Yunsheng. Not speaking of Feng Yunsheng's outstanding talent in the martial Tao, just the fact that the Sacred Sun Clan had 2 maidens of Extremine, while the resources they expended would be even greater, they would only be happier. With the pressure of the flame devil world outside, and the limited number of maidens of Extremine, the Sacred Clan, the sacred grounds could only send a single person to the sacred ground. To the Sacred Sun Clan, Feng Yunsheng and Meng Wan were double insurance. Feng Yunsheng regained her composure. Smiling, she said, if Feng Yunsheng was still Feng Muge, even if the Grand Master had passed away, Shaoshan would not have dared to mess around. What happened after that would not have happened. Yen Zhaoge nodded. Shaoshan, Chao Yuanlong, and the others were indeed looking for you. You entered the Sealing Dragon Abyss before. Feng Yunsheng straightforwardly said, that's right. In order to hide my tracks and shake off my pursuers, I hid in the Sealing Dragon Abyss for a while. Now that I'm covered in injuries, part of it is because of the Sealing Dragon Abyss. How did you lose your Extremine body? One time when I went out to train, I got close to the outskirts of hell and accidentally entered a land of Yin energy. The Yin energy was so extreme that it damaged my body. Although Yen Zhaoge's question was directed at her most painful scar, Feng Yunsheng's expression did not change in the slightest. At that time, I felt that something was wrong. After I returned to the mountain, I discovered that the power of Yin in my body was weakening continuously. In the end, it gradually disappeared. Feng Yunsheng let out a derisive laugh, her gaze carrying some disgust. At that time, Grand Master had just passed away not long ago, and I just happened to lose my Extremine body. Xiao Shun came up with some devious ideas, wanting to take advantage of me. In the end, he was heavily injured by me using the protective treasure that Grand Master had left behind. His maternal grandfather was enraged, distorting the truth and slandering me for failing to seduce Xiao Shun. Feeling humiliated and enraged, he plotted to injure Xiao Shun, wanting to kill me to vent his anger. Luckily, I received the news early, and my master helped me in secret. Only then was I able to escape from the clan. Yan Zhaoge looked rather interestedly at Feng Yunsheng, suddenly laughing. Oh, could it be that what Xiao Shun said was the truth, and now you're instead trying to quibble, trying to deceive me? Feng Yunsheng laughed. Even if I really wanted to chase after a man, I also wouldn't look for that Xiao Shun. I didn't have much contact with Huang Jie, so I didn't understand him. Isn't senior brother Tang much stronger than him? Yan Zhaoge shrugged, smiling but not saying anything. If reason really had been completely on Xiao Shun's side, the clan would have long since sent out experts to capture Feng Yunsheng back. It wouldn't have been just some younger disciples who were closer to Xiao Shun chasing after her. Although Xiao Shun's maternal grandfather was the Grand Elder of the Sacred Sun clan, he was still far from being able to cover the sky with one hand. Feng Yunsheng's Grand Master had died, but the Sacred Sun clan naturally still had Xiao Shun's maternal grandfather's enemies to keep him in check. However, to say that he would uphold justice for Feng Yunsheng, that might not be the case. Xiao Shun and Feng Yunsheng's private conflict, lacking witnesses, each of them sticking to their own version of events. Feng Yunsheng hadn't had her virginity taken by Xiao Shun, but Xiao Shun had truly been heavily injured by her. I betrayed the Sacred Sun clan and even killed the three of them. The Sacred Sun clan definitely won't let this matter rest. Feng Yunsheng said calmly, "My own clan still leans towards the grandson of the Grand Elder, rather than me, who has lost my extreme yin physique. It is also normal for your clan to abandon me. I only hope that senior brother, Yen, will not make things difficult for me, and let me leave on my own. The Sacred Sun clan's pursuit is frightening, but at most, it would just be death. I might still be able to forge a path of survival. Even without the extreme yin physique, I still have the saber in my hands. If there's hope, I have to try. If there's no hope, I have to try." Yan Zhaoge didn't speak, just carefully appraising her. Feng Yunsheng frowned slightly. She didn't see any evil intent within Yan Zhaoge's gaze. However, if she stayed here for too long, the other Sacred Sun clan people would very likely find their way here. It was just that Yan Zhaoge didn't speak, and she also couldn't just leave. Feng Yunsheng shook her head, stooped down, and emptied the belongings of the three corpses. Then she brandished the jet-black saber in her hands, activating what little internal chi she had left, activating the power of her weapon. The spiritual chi of the artifact transformed into a tangible blazing fire, landing on the three corpses, instantly burning them up fiercely, engulfing them. Yan Zhaoge suddenly reached out, grabbing her wrist. Feng Yunsheng didn't feel embarrassed, instead raising her brows, staring straight at Yan Zhaoge, not saying a word. Yan Zhaoge ignored her. Instead, pondering for a moment, the corners of his mouth gradually revealed a hint of a smile. Feng Yunsheng, it might not be impossible for her to become Feng Muge again. Feng Yunsheng was startled. The Sacred Sun clan's chief personally made the judgment, and all the peak experts of the clan who aren't in secluded cultivation are also, what they say doesn't count. Yan Zhaoge said, casually. Feng Yunsheng opened her mouth, looking at Yan Zhaoge for a long time, unable to speak. After a long time, the girl revealed a bitter expression for the first time. "You're even more confident than me, although I don't know where your confidence comes from. If I can regain my extreme yin physique, I'll be the one benefiting from it. Of course I'll be happy." Senior apprentice brother, Yen means that Broad Creed Mountain can take me in? I wonder how much of a decision senior apprentice brother Yen can make in this matter. Yen Zhaoga smiled, just about to speak, when his ears suddenly twitched. Outside the valley, there were also black-clothed martial practitioners flashing. Moving closer to Yen Zhaoga, someone was approaching the valley, and with ill intentions, with an extraordinary cultivation base. Chapter 44. A cold light flickered within his slits-like eyes, as venomous as a snake's. Even his rough voice was unable to break through that cold feeling. Good, good. Today really wasn't a waste for me, meeting the two of you on the same day, in the same place. A cold smile appeared on Xiao Shun's bearded face. Yen Zhaoga tilted his head slightly, appraising Xiao Shun. This bearded face of yours, I always feel a little uncomfortable looking at it, but I can't quite put my finger on it. Hearing his words, the muscles at the corners of Xiao Shun's eyes twitched a few times. Yen Zhaoga, do you still remember when I said that the two of us still had plenty of time in the future? Never would I have thought that this day would come so quickly. Xiao Shun's gaze turned to Feng Yunsheng, his voice suddenly becoming much deeper. Junior apprentice Sister Feng, I also said back then that you wouldn't be able to escape. Feng Yunsheng said nonchalantly, from the looks of it, you were indeed injured quite badly back then. Xiao Shun stared fixedly at Feng Yunsheng. Junior apprentice Sister Feng, I already knew that you didn't fear death. Now that I think about it, it is even more so. But don't be anxious. I will let you know that in this world, there are many things that are even more terrifying than death. And at this moment, in front of me, your life and death are no longer up to you. Xiao Shun's voice suddenly became much gentler, yet revealed a bone-piercing chill. Believe me, even if you wanted to end yourself, it would be impossible. Feng Yunsheng smiled slightly. Her current cultivation base was only at the body refinement stage, while Xiao Shun was already at the late outer aura martial scholar realm. The gap between the two was indeed so great that one side would not be able to control his own life and death. However, her hand gripped her saber even tighter, not a hint of fear in her expression. Xiao Shun, you should be thanking me for helping you remove your greatest weakness. Don't you feel that in these past 2 years, you've improved even faster than before? Xiao Shun's gaze grew increasingly gloomy. You're still so sharp-tongued. Very good. This is also what I like the most about you. Later, we'll have enough time to slowly reminisce. You can't be so fearless because you think that the person beside you can protect you, right? Then your eyesight really is a little too poor. Hearing his words, Yen Zhaoga burst out laughing. The sacred sun saint puppet that was shattered by you yourself is watching you from the skies. Xiao Shun was not angered by his words, instead nodding his head. That's right, Yen Zhaoga, you do have some skills. I have to admit, I underestimated you. However, if you think that you've defeated me just because you took advantage of me, then you're deceiving yourself too much. As Xiao Shun spoke, his body did not move from his original spot. However, a vigorous gang qi was being released from his body. As the stellar energy circulated, a faint metallic luster flickered, becoming more and more dazzling. In that instant, Xiao Shun's body seemed to be enveloped by a golden halo. In the next moment, rays of golden light flew out and circulated between heaven and earth. It was as if countless rays of sunlight had transformed into golden swords. The golden light instantly traversed a distance of 100 paces, passing behind Yen Zhaoga, Feng Yunsheng, and the others. Amidst an ear-piercing sound, numerous streaks of golden light either pierced into the mountain rocks or into the ground, riddling the valley behind Yen Zhaoga with countless holes. The golden light pierced into the rocky ground and did not dissipate for a long time. Resembling real weapons, they formed a semicircle, trapping Yen Zhaoga and the others within. The black-clothed martial practitioners behind Yen Zhaoge all frowned. Wielding qi 100 paces, condensed into reality, aura qi could be transformed into a tangible qi artifact. Whether in terms of attack or defense, it surpassed that of an early outer aura martial scholar. This was precisely the mark of a mid-outer aura martial scholar. Condensed into reality, aura qi could also be used for long-range attacks. Wielding qi 100 paces, arriving in an instant, making it hard for the opponent to run away, this was still not the end. His hands behind his back, Xiao Shun's body shockingly began to leave the ground, rising higher and higher, only stopping in midair. There was nothing beneath his feet. He just floated in midair, just like that. This, however, was the mark of a late outer aura martial scholar, being even more condensed and vigorous than a mid-outer aura martial scholar. One's aura qi could allow one to float in the air for a short period of time, as well as move short distances. Against opponents who were unable to do the same, Xiao Shun would at least be able to remain undefeatable. It was very simple. If he couldn't beat his opponent, he would directly float into the air and increase the distance between them, while his opponent could only stare at him. Even if his opponent also condensed a qi artifact for long-range attacks, even wielding qi 100 paces, the closer the distance, the more powerful it would be. As Xiao Shun pulled away from his opponent, the point where their qi artifacts collided was closer to him, naturally giving him a great advantage. Earlier, when he had used the wooden puppet as a medium to compete with Yen Zhaoge, Xiao Shun had indeed been dancing with his shackles on, not displaying his true strength at all. And now he had truly displayed the nearly overwhelming difference in strength between a late outer aura martial scholar and an early outer aura martial scholar. Suppressing someone with a higher cultivation base was definitely not as simple as just saying it. Hovering in midair, Xiao Shun looked down at Yen Zhaoge from above. For me, a late outer aura martial scholar, to fight you, an early outer aura martial scholar, I believe that you won't accept it. However, if you want to interfere in Feng Muge's matter, then don't blame me. Even if your broad Creed Mountain elders were here, this would still be the same principle. If you want to protect my Sacred Sun Clan's escaped disciple, then this battle between you and me would no longer be an exchange of pointers. Looking down at Yen Zhaoge, Xiao Shun suddenly laughed. I could even beat you to death on the spot. However, even if you didn't interfere in Feng Muge's matter, today would still be fun. It's just that it will be junior apprentice brother Chao playing with you first. A group of white-clothed youths also appeared within the mountain valley. Their leader was precisely the Chao Yuanlong, who had been defeated by Yen Zhaoge in the Sealing Dragon Abyss that day. Chao Yuanlong slowly let out a breath. Yen Zhaoge, this one wants to have another battle with you. Around his body, dazzling golden light once again shot out, resembling the light of countless needles. Previously, in the Sealing Dragon Abyss, Chao Yuanlong had stimulated his aura qi, causing the ground beneath his feet to completely shatter. But now, on the ground where he had come into contact with his aura qi, countless pinholes had been left behind, resembling a beehive of ants. The penetrative power and cohesiveness of his aura qi were completely incomparable, on top of the numerous golden needle-like aura qi that Chao Yuanlong was emitting. A faint metallic light also shockingly flickered. Clearly, he had also stepped into the outer aura martial scholar realm. Looking at Chao Yuanlong, Feng Yunsheng raised her brows slightly. You are drawing the divine sun needles into your body, forcefully tempering your aura qi to the point where it can be released externally. A playful expression appeared on Yen Zhaoge's face. I've heard of it before, but in my memories, this method's side effects are great. It will cause your body to be plagued with pain day and night, making you wish you were dead. It will also greatly delay your future cultivation progress. Chao Yuanlong's face was indifferent. Compared to the humiliation you have given this one, what is this little bit of pain worth mentioning? If this hatred is not avenged, this one is not human. Saying so, Chow Yuanlong had already taken a step forward, directly arriving in front of Yen Zhaoge. Yen Zhaoge raised his eyebrows, and with a flick of his right sleeve, a green light flew out like lightning. Coiling dragon sleeve, good move. Chow Yuanlong roared, his hands suddenly intersecting. But it was not the heaven-striking palm. Those numerous needle-like golden orochi actually became soft, resembling countless thin threads. The countless threads changed from hard to soft, resembling 10,000 snakes leaving their bodies, entangling the green swordlight. Yen Zhaoge's swordlight trembled, and numerous green sword orochi erupted, cutting apart the golden threads. But those threads seemed endless, unceasingly entangling Yen Zhaoge's sword, gradually exhausting Yen Zhaoge's sword energy. Carefully appraising Chow Yuanlong's martial Dao, the corners of Yen Zhaoge's mouth twitched, and his expression became a little strange. Chow Yuanlong coldly said, "This one knew that you had reached the outer aura stage much earlier, but still did not hesitate to use the divine sun needles to enter your body, speeding up your breakthrough into the outer aura martial scholar realm. It was all for the sake of cultivating in this martial Dao that counters your coiling dragon sleeve." Chapter 45. The sword light was like a dragon, soaring into the sky. However, thousands of golden snakes coiled around the azure dragon and kept biting it. The azure dragon shook its body, shaking the golden snakes to death. However, the golden snakes seemed to be endless. Gradually, the azure dragon lost its vitality and was unable to continue flying. It could only fall into the dust and be devoured by the 10,000 snakes. The snake's body was more flexible than the dragon's. As it coiled, it continuously dispelled the force. Chow Yuanlong's orochi, which had been tempered 100 times over, was actually able to resist Yen Zhaoge's coiling dragon sleeve. As the green sword light gradually faded, the bamboo branch within Yen Zhaoge's hands regained its original appearance. Chow Yuanlong's eyes erupted with a shocking light. "Yen Zhaoge, today, even if you used a real sword, it would still be hard for you to escape defeat. I won't destroy this bamboo of yours. Instead, I'll leave it for you. If I don't beat you until your face is covered in blood, I won't be able to vent my anger." Yen Zhaoge did not speak, only looking at Chow Yuanlong with a strange expression on his face. Feng Yinsheng also stared at Chow Yuanlong. Sky snake silk hand? It's even more unpopular than the golden sun needle energy art. I can't believe he actually succeeded. The snake-like hand of entangling silk, as the name suggested, was soft and flexible, capable of entangling and untying. It was an extremely fine and delicate martial art of capturing. It had been inadvertently obtained by a martial practitioner of the Sacred Sun clan, stored in the clan's martial repository. Because it was incompatible with the Sacred Sun clan's martial art, orochi, it required one to be in the outer aura realm, able to externalize orochi before one could cultivate it. Between different martial arts, sometimes there would indeed be mutual reinforcement and restraint. Having cultivated in this martial art, Chow Yuanlong had achieved great success in one fell swoop, and was now even more effective in restraining Yen Zhaoge's coiling dragon sleeve than his own 7 great sun arts. Yen Zhaoge swiveled his head to look at Feng Yunsheng. It's called the Heavenly Snake Silk Binding Hand. Looking at the expression on Yen Zhaoge's face that seemed to be smiling, whilst also not, Feng Yunsheng nodded in puzzlement. Ha! Yen Zhaoge didn't say anything else. He just stood there, smiling at Chow Yuanlong. As soon as he saw that smile, Chow Yuanlong couldn't help but get angry. He felt the long-healed scar on his face stinging again. He let out a shrill howl and waved his hands. Millions upon millions of golden snakes coiled around and attacked again. Standing in midair, Xiao Shun looked down at Yan Zhaoge from high above. You can switch to another good weapon. You should have a spirit weapon, right? Why don't you take it out for me to see? However, since I am here today, I can lend my weapon to junior brother Chao anytime. Do you think you can still gain the upper hand in this aspect? Before he had finished speaking, he saw Yan Zhaoge standing there, not moving an inch. Only when Chao Yuanlong was right in front of him, did he suddenly make his move. He did not draw his sword. It was an attack. In a trance, everyone's vision darkened. Like a solar eclipse, Chao Yuanlong's entire body surged with stellar energy, and the radiance of the sun instantly dimmed. As Yan Zhaoge punched out, his arm seemed to have transformed into a massive python with 12 pairs of wings on its back. It coiled within the sea of stars, its length immeasurable. The heavenly snake king. It was a legendary existence, and its strength was above that of many dragons. Yan Zhaoge's fist, his aura chi vibrating, resembling a heavenly serpent devouring the sun, instantly engulfed Chao Yuanlong. The incomparably gentle power did not even cause the slightest sound of the wind, but when it exploded, it was as if the heavens and earth were collapsing. In the blink of an eye, Chao Yuanlong, who had been rushing towards Yan Zhaoge, was sent flying by Yan Zhaoge with a speed even faster than when he had left. Xiao Shun and Feng Yunsheng were both stunned. Then, they could only watch helplessly as Chao Yuanlong's body flew through the air in a parabolic arc, falling straight onto the ground. Like a dead fish with its stomach flipped upside down, he lay there twitching, yet unable to make a single sound. The Sacred Sun Clan disciples who had traveled alongside Xiao Shun and Chao Yuanlong were once again left staring wide-eyed and slack-jawed. What was this situation? Hadn't senior apprentice brother Chao already mastered the martial arts that specifically countered Yan Zhaoge's? Hadn't it been said that even if Yan Zhaoge had also become an outer aura martial scholar, he would still be certain of victory? Hadn't he still held the upper hand, just now? How had it become like this in the blink of an eye? Looking at Chao Yuanlong lying on the ground, Yan Zhaoge did not know whether to be angry or to laugh. Heavenly Snake, Silkworm Hand. Hearing this name, I was just wondering why it looked so familiar. It's obviously derived from a branch of the Heavenly Snake, King Fist, of the Six Spirits' demonic fists. You only began cultivating in the Heavenly Snake, Silkworm Hand after becoming an early outer aura martial scholar, while I have been cultivating in it ever since arriving in this world. My Heavenly Snake, King Fist, against your Heavenly Snake, Silkworm Hand, is the same rhythm as a father beating his son. You say, aren't you just delivering food to me? Yan Zhaoge retracted his fist, looking at Xiao Shun, spreading his hands apart. It seems like he can't play with me anymore. The shocked expression on Xiao Shun's face disappeared, and the gaze with which he looked at Yan Zhaoge was filled with an unprecedented seriousness. However, it was also filled with an unprecedented coldness. They all say that the broad-creed young master's sword is like a dragon, but it was all just a facade. Who would have thought that you had concealed yourself so deeply? Xiao Shun said slowly. Sadly, you still weren't smart enough and exposed yourself too early. If you had endured a little longer, you might have really become a huge threat in the future. Now, even if I have to bear the responsibility of inciting a war between two sacred grounds, I really do feel like killing you today. A cold light erupted from Xiao Shun's eyes, and his aura chi was completely released, resembling the sun. Numerous golden rays of light circulated between the heavens and the earth within a radius of several hundred meters, resembling countless sharp blades as they hovered above Yan Zhaoge's head. The pressure of a late outer aura martial scholar was fully displayed, let alone Yan Zhaoge, who was directly facing it. Even the surrounding Feng Yunsheng and the others, as well as the other Sacred Sun Clan disciples, all felt a suffocating feeling. Yan Zhaoge nodded nonchalantly. That's right. amongst martial practitioners of the same cultivation level. You are also an elite. Xiao Shun said mildly, I now admit that your ranking as one of the 4 young masters is not just for show. If we were at the same cultivation level, even I wouldn't have the confidence to defeat you. However, the difference in our cultivation levels is too great. If you were in the mid-outer aura stage, perhaps you would still be able to escape from my hands. The black-clothed martial practitioners accompanying Yan Zhaoge all fell silent. Their young master had just broken through to the outer aura stage not long ago, although he had very quickly completed the second cleansing of his marrows, wanting to immediately break through once more was not really possible. The crowd of Sacred Sun Clan disciples all let out a sigh of relief. Although senior apprentice brother Chao had been defeated, fortunately, there was still senior apprentice brother Xiao. As for the suppression of cultivation levels and whatnot, they couldn't be bothered about it now. At this moment, Yan Zhaoge's gaze was instead directed towards Chao Yuanlong, who was being supported by his fellow disciples. I gave you a chance, which is why I clashed with you at the same cultivation level. Who would have thought that the result would be so laughable? Hearing his words, Chao Yuanlong's eyes widened. Yan Zhaoge shook his head. Is mid-outer aura martial scholar very difficult? As he said this, the acupoints of Yan Zhaoge's entire body shuddered, streams of white qi vaguely surging, resembling an ice dragon soaring into the heavens. His qi and blood that resembled lead mercury surged, the aura qi around his body flickering with a metallic luster that grew more and more dazzling. Yan Zhaoge casually punched out with a heavenly snake king fist in midair, his roiling aura qi twisting and coiling, twisting into one, finally transforming into a thick black whip. The long black whip shook in midair, as an explosive sound resounded, resembling a sudden clap of thunder, condensing qi into a weapon, as though it was real. Xiao Shun's eyes widened. Mid-outer aura stage. Chapter 46. Originally already heavily injured, he could no longer support his mind, and directly fainted. His second crushing defeat at Yan Zhaoge's hands had already caused him to be depressed to the point of insanity. Now seeing Yan Zhaoge actually advance a step further, stepping into the mid-outer aura martial scholar realm as easily as if he was eating or drinking water, Chao Yuanlong completely collapsed. This way, what was the point of him forcefully breaking through to the outer aura martial scholar realm, enduring the immense side effects of the divine sun needle technique? In the sealing dragon abyss, everyone had clearly still been at the late inner aura martial scholar realm. In such a short period of time, how had Yan Zhaoge consecutively broken through such hurdles, advancing to the mid-outer aura martial scholar realm so quickly? Could it be that everything that had happened in the sealing dragon abyss had all been an illusion? Other than Chao Yuanlong, the other Sacred Sun Clan disciples who had seen Yan Zhaoge in action in the sealing dragon abyss were all dumbfounded. Even Xiao Shun's body swayed, nearly falling straight down from midair. Fuck. Back then, how long did I take to advance from the late inner aura stage to the mid-outer aura stage? Xiao Shun stared wide-eyed, not even daring to continue thinking about it. Yan Zhaoge's aura qi condensed into a long whip in his hand, which he shook in midair, letting out another sound. Exposed too early? Endure it? Why should I endure it? Yan Zhaoge said nonchalantly, so what if you speak as if you can do anything to me? In this world, there are naturally still many who can defeat me, but you, Xiao Shun, are not one of them. Yan Zhaoge waved his other hand, his aura qi condensing, transforming into a massive ice blue sword in midair. The sword's blade shone with a cold light, the faint silhouette of a dragon flickering within. Numerous white ice danced, surrounding the sword, resembling an ice dragon concealed within the clouds. Xiao Shun sucked in a deep breath. Yan Zhaoge, you seem to have forgotten something. Right now, you are still only in the mid-outer aura stage. Unless you can immediately advance to the late outer aura stage, you will definitely die today. With a long howl, Xiao Shun descended from the skies with an enraged howl. Rays of golden light, resembling a rain of swords, descended towards Yan Zhaoga. Yan Zhaoga brandished his ice-blue sword in midair, resembling a divine dragon soaring through the horizon as it hacked at the golden streaks of light one by one. Every single one of them was incomparably condensed and might not necessarily be inferior to Yan Zhaoga's sword aura. However, Yan Zhaoga's sword aura was always able to strike at the weakest point of Xiao Shun's golden light. As a result, even though the energy swords were fighting against multiple enemies, they were still able to block the torrential golden light. It was just that those golden streaks of light were merely Xiao Shun's feints. Although the golden light had been shattered by the sword energy, it still lingered in the air like a mist and did not completely disappear. Many remnants of the golden light enveloped the surroundings, but it instead formed a scene of the setting sun shining in the evening. An icy cold smile appeared at the corners of Xiao Shun's mouth as he changed his palms, pushing them out towards Yan Zhaoga. The world formed of all-encompassing golden light forged of his aura chi collapsed towards its center, blasting towards Yan Zhaoga. The profundities of the sunset thousand illusory palms had been completely unleashed by Xiao Shun at this moment, and it was far from what he had displayed with the sacred sun saint puppet. That day, the world before Yan Zhaoga's eyes resembled the darkest dusk at the moment when the sun had set, with only despair remaining before his eyes. Huh! With a light yell, Yan Zhaoga retracted his fists, bringing them back to his lower abdomen. His left hand was firmly pressed against his lower abdomen, not moving an inch. His right hand trembled slightly as he kept patting his body. His two hands, one active and one still, one yin and one yang, one steady and one agile, reached a perfect state of harmony. The ocean-calming spirit fist of the demonic six spirits fist in his left hand transformed into the image of a spirit turtle. The heavenly snake king fist of the demonic six spirits fist in his right hand transformed into the image of a heavenly snake. The turtle and the snake intersected, movement and stillness combined, yin and yang intersecting. On the abdomen of the human body, hidden within the muscles and muscles, there was an acupoint called Shangxiu, also known as the blood gate. It was the most important middle point of a martial artist's qi and blood circulation. Stimulating the blood gate, in coordination with his heart, caused the blood in his body to boil. His energy surged, and his potential burst forth. Before the great calamity, it had been mentioned in the Divine Palace's Zhenwu Fist scripture. Shang Chu of the Blood Gate, the god of true martial of the North Star. Two streams of qi and blood, one urgent, one slow, converged on Yan Zhaoga's Shangxiu acupoint, clumping together, resembling the chaotic origin embryo of the heavens and the earth at the beginning of time. The next moment, his qi and blood shook mightily, a powerful force that far surpassed his usual strength erupting from within Yan Zhaoga's body. Both of his hands pushed forward horizontally. The energy in his left hand transformed into a huge shield that resembled a spirit turtle that stabilized the sea. The energy in his right hand turned into a thick whip, making him look like the king of heavenly snakes. The turtle and the snake intersected, rumbling forward together. The figure of a giant vaguely appeared. Northern Dipper Emperor. Turtle and snake combined attack, Zhenwu manifesting its divinity. Like a force that could push mountains and fill the seas, it pushed towards Xiao Shun, forcibly breaking through his sunset thousand illusory palms. Xiao Shun was greatly shocked. Changing his palm technique, the sunset turning into a remnant light, he hurriedly switched from attack to defense. The illusory remnant light was blurry and indistinct, making it hard for one to discern what was real and what was fake. Xiao Shun's figure rose rapidly in midair, relying on his late outer aura martial scholar's advantage of being able to float in midair. Only then was he able to avoid Yan Zhaoga's attack. His entire body instantly broke out in cold sweat. This is the strength that a mid-outer aura martial scholar can possess. Yan Zhaoga laughed. Mid-outer aura martial scholar is more than enough to beat you. Take another of my attacks. Yan Zhaoga exerted force with his feet, causing half the ground of the valley to collapse and cave in. Borrowing the force of his attacks, Yan Zhaoga shot into the air, shooting straight towards Xiao Shun like a cannonball. Xiao Shun snorted coldly. In midair, he suddenly leapt. His entire body was as swift and violent as thunder as he instantly traversed a large distance, pulling apart the distance between him and Yan Zhaoga of the Sacred Sun Clan's direct lineage martial arts, one of the 7 great sun arts, the great sun rising east traversing heaven, the only pure movement technique of the 7 great sun arts. As it was executed, it was ferocious and swift, as unstoppable as the sun rising from the east. After having avoided Yan Zhaoga's attack with his movement technique, Xiao Shun's body immediately leapt again, instead lunging towards Yan Zhaoga. He wanted to take advantage of Yan Zhaoga's weakness of only being able to go up and down with his explosive power and not being able to continuously shift through the air like him. At this moment, Xiao Shun lunged forward, precisely wanting to trap Yan Zhaoga when his old strength had already been exhausted and when he had yet to generate any new strength. A golden wheel rose into the air, illuminating the surrounding area, directly smashing towards Yan Zhaoga. Spirit artifact, radiant sun wheel. Xiao Shun's face was ice cold as he used his full strength in his attack. Yan Zhaoga, however, had long since been prepared for this. The accumulated power of his Shangqiu acupoint erupted once more. His body that had originally already begun descending actually forcibly halted in midair. For a moment, Yan Zhaoga's right sleeve spread out, and instantly a green light that resembled a dragon roared out. This time, the weapon in Yan Zhaoga's hand was no longer a bamboo branch, but rather a jade green sword. The spiritual light of the sword flickered, and from within emanated the clear and real roar of a dragon that shocked the heavens, and was not an illusory one at all. Spirit artifact, jade dragon sword. Yan Zhaoga merged with the sword, shooting into the air, instantly piercing through the air, instantly arriving in front of Xiao Shun. Where the sword pointed, the 7 stars converged, the north shining vast as the heavens. Broad Creed Mountain's direct lineage martial art, one of the 8 extreme arts, Big Dipper sword. Helpless, Xiao Shun could only use the radiant sun wheel to resist Yan Zhaoga's jade dragon sword. Chapter 47. Yan Zhaoga's left palm was a crimson purple. As his aura chi rose, it seemed as though it had condensed into an actual purple flame. Where the fiery light passed, Xiao Shun's aura chi instantly showed signs of collapsing. Under that palm, his entire body seemed as though it had been placed within a furnace, about to be burnt to ashes by the purple Tushita flames. Of the 8 extreme arts like the Big Dipper sword, Broad Creed Mountain's direct lineage martial art, Tushita palm, Yan Zhaoga and Xiao Shun simultaneously let out light cries. Other than the jade dragon sword and the radiant sun wheel, treasures also lit up on their bodies. As they clashed in midair, each and every one of their treasures erupted with their own power, clashing against each other. As the people in the valley raised their heads to look, they saw brilliant light flickering in the sky, dazzling to the eyes. Yan Zhaoga and Xiao Shun, both equipped with treasures, instantly erupted together, attacking and defending as they clashed. The power of a large number of treasures canceled each other out. However, Yan Zhaoga's left Tushita palm did not let up and still heavily struck Xiao Shun's body. Xiao Shun let out a muffled groan, blood flowing from his mouth, and knows as he was sent flying backwards. The crowd of Sacred Sun Clan disciples all let out shocked cries, their faces ashen. The late outer aura martial scholar Xiao Shen against the mid-outer aura martial scholar Yen Zhaoge. The result was actually Xiao Shen's defeat. This result was even more shocking than when Yen Zhaoge had defeated Chao Yuanlong twice at the same cultivation level. After all, Xiao Shen was not a late outer aura martial scholar. He was also a genius who could surpass levels to defeat a mid-outer aura martial scholar, while still in the early outer aura martial scholar realm. Previously, when he had clashed with Chao Yuanlong in the Sealing Dragon Abyss, regardless of their strength, a single sentence from Yen Zhaoge had caused Chao Yuanlong to not dare to use his weapon. In a bare-handed contest, both sides were young geniuses, relying on their cultivation bases. However, if they were to use weapons, even if Chao Yuanlong was a direct lineage genius of the Sacred Sun Clan, how could he compare to Yen Zhaoge, whose father was a bigwig of Broad Creed Mountain? Xiao Shen was different. Like Yen Zhaoge, his entire body was filled with treasures. However, with their respective treasures restricting each other, he had been defeated by Yen Zhaoge. The gap between their cultivation bases was truly there and could not be ignored. Not to mention the fact that Yen Zhaoge viewed the barrier between realms as nothing at all. From the early to the mid-outer aura stage, he could cross it as he wished. From when he had been in the sealing abyss of the late inner aura martial of the early to the mid-outer aura, he could cross over as he wanted. Such a Yen Zhaoge resembled a towering mountain, causing despair to involuntarily arise in the hearts of those who saw him. Yen Zhaoge descended from midair. Without the slightest bit of hesitation, with a flick of his right hand, the jade dragon sword flew directly towards Xiao Shen. Xiao Shen gritted his teeth and activated the radiant sun wheel, blocking the jade dragon sword. The two spirit weapons clashed against each other. Looking at Xiao Shen, Yen Zhaoge smiled. Late outer aura martial scholar, don't just focus on running. With that, he exerted force once more under his feet, instantly shortening the distance between them by over 100 meters as he charged towards Xiao Shen once more. Xiao Shen stared at him, his eyes seemingly on the verge of popping out of their sockets. Finally, with a low, depressed roar, he roared towards the other Sacred Sun Clan disciples. Go! Everyone's bodies trembled as they looked at Yen Zhaoge and Xiao Shen with complex expressions on their faces. Their hearts all seemed to have died as they hurriedly lifted the long, unconscious Chao Yuanlong and retreated out of the valley. Yen Zhaoge did not make things difficult for them, instead focusing on Xiao Shen as he continued beating him up. Xiao Shen gloomily executed the leap of the rising sun. This time, however, it was not for a sneak attack, but rather to avoid Yen Zhaoge and then escape. Although his heart felt like it was dripping blood, he was 100 times unwilling to admit it. But at this moment, Xiao Shen also realized that he really was not Yen Zhaoge's match. He, at the late outer aura martial scholar realm, was not able to beat the mid-outer aura Yen Zhaoge. Relying on the levitating ability of a late outer aura martial scholar, as well as the speed of the leap of the rising sun, Xiao Shen narrowly avoided Yen Zhaoge's next blow. However, wherever his aura chi passed, the large tuft of beard on Xiao Shen's face suddenly broke apart and flew into the air. Xiao Shen was dazed for a moment before his face abruptly flushed red, dark red like blood. His emotions having gone out of control, he was also unable to maintain his coarse voice as he let out a sharp, resentful howl. Seeing this, Yen Zhaoge was also slightly taken aback. The Xiao Shen before him not only had his beard cut off, but his entire beard had fallen off at the same time. His face and chin were smooth, without even a single stubble to be seen. Without his beard, Xiao Shen's appearance overlapped with that in Yen Zhaoge's memories. He was also a handsome youth. However, at this moment, accompanied by that sharp, piercing voice, no matter how one looked at it. Xiao Shun seemed a little feminine, completely different from a normal man. Xiao Shun glared at Yan Zhaoge in anger, then shot a venomous look at Feng Yunsheng. Finally, not lingering any longer, he turned and left. The corners of Yan Zhaoge's mouth twitched slightly as he turned back to look at Feng Yunsheng. You said that you heavily injured him that year. Where exactly did you injure him, Feng Yunsheng, on the other hand, was completely unaffected by Xiao Shun's anger and hatred, instead focusing her attention on Yan Zhaoge. Although she was currently only at the body refinement realm due to her heavy injuries, her eyesight and knowledge were still present. However, it was precisely because she was knowledgeable that she was even more shocked by everything that Yan Zhaoge had displayed. Even when Yan Zhaoge had turned around to ask her a question, her mouth was still slightly agape, filled with shock. Hearing Yan Zhaoge's question, Feng Yunsheng regained her wits, her expression relaxed. That year his little brother was unruly, wanting to take advantage of me. Naturally, I helped him discipline his little brother. You can do it. Yan Zhaoge curled his lips, suddenly feeling a little chilly at his crotch. He had heard that Xiao Shun's maternal grandfather only had a single daughter, his mother. In his generation, he also only had this one maternal grandson. His father's Xiao family, when it came to him, only had a single descendant. No wonder they wanted to drive you away. With your grand master dead, the Sacred Sun clan no longer has anyone to protect you. Feng Yunsheng said nonchalantly of the so-called Sacred Sun clan's younger generation's 4 rising sons. Xiao Shen and Chao Yuanlong both have their own problems. Chao Yuanlong's personality is firm and resolute, not fearing danger or hardship. However, he likes to walk the unorthodox path, always wanting to do things that others are unable to do, as if only by doing so can he display his abilities. Actually, if he had obediently followed the prescribed order and cultivated in the orthodox martial arts of the Sacred Sun clan like the other disciples, instead of those unorthodox martial arts like the Golden Sun Needle art and the Heavenly Snake silk binding hand, with his talent and willpower, while his current combat strength might be slightly lower, his future achievements would only be higher. Feng Yunsheng shook her head. Xiao Shun's willpower is inferior to Chao Yuanlong's, but his comprehension ability is still superior. Sadly, his thoughts are too wild, and he is especially lustful, unable to control that little Xiao Shun of his. Otherwise, his achievements would also be much higher than they are now. At this point, Feng Yunsheng laughed. I helped him sever that root of his worries. These past 2 years, his strength has clearly improved at a faster rate than before. Hearing her words, Yan Zhaoge rolled his eyes. He still lacks a sunflower manual. Feng Yunsheng was taken aback. What martial art is that? I've never heard of it before. Yan Zhaoge waved his hands, not speaking any further, instead beginning to inspect his spoils of war. In his battle with Xiao Shen, a large number of treasures had been exchanged. In the end, in order to escape, Xiao Shun's connection with many of his treasures had been broken by Yan Zhaoge. Having fled in a panic, Xiao Shun had naturally not been able to collect these treasures in time. Now, they had all naturally fallen into Yan Zhaoge's pockets. Among them, 2 mid-grade artifacts were just right for his current use. However, Yan Zhaoge himself did not lack mid-grade artifacts. There was 1 high-grade artifact which could be considered valuable. However, what was truly more attractive was that spirit artifact, the Radiant Sun Wheel. The value of this thing and artifacts were on a completely different level. Chapter 48. The Radiant Sun Wheel and the Jade Dragon Sword were both elites amongst low-grade spirit artifacts. If not for Yan Zhaoge and Xiao Shun's family background, martial scholars rarely possessed low-grade spirit artifacts. Middle-grade spirit artifacts Old Man Yen and Xiao Shun's grandfather naturally had a surplus. However, with Yen Zhaoge and Xiao Shun's current cultivation, using low-grade spirit artifacts was already their limit, and they could only unleash a limited amount of their power. In the current Eight Extremities world, there was only one sacred artifact, like the extreme Yin crown, that could be used by martial scholars. Not to mention other sacred weapons, even if it was a high-grade or mid-grade spirit weapon. A martial scholar would not bother with it at all. The autonomous spirituality of spirit artifacts was much higher than that of artifacts. Therefore, Feng Yunsheng watched with interest as Yen Zhaoge kept the Radiant Sun Wheel. Spirit artifacts had their own spirituality. If the other party wasn't a martial grandmaster, they wouldn't easily change owners and be used by others. The Radiant Sun Wheel was only temporarily entangled by the Jade Dragon Sword. It hadn't already bowed its head to Yen Zhaoge. If not for the Jade Dragon Sword entangling it, the Radiant Sun Wheel would probably have long since flown away, searching for its original owner, Xiao Shun. While Yen Zhaoge currently had the chance to temporarily restrict the Radiant Sun Wheel, his Jade Dragon Sword had essentially become the Radiant Sun Wheel's shackles and cage. The two spirit artifacts were mutually restraining each other. Before this problem was resolved, let alone the Radiant Sun Wheel, Yen Zhaoge couldn't even use the Jade Dragon Sword. His overall strength had actually dropped by a large amount. To a martial scholar, a low-grade spirit weapon was like a treasure weapon to a body refinement martial artist. Naturally, he had to take it down. However, if he were to meet an enemy later on, it would inevitably be a little awkward. Feng Yunsheng suddenly froze. She saw Yen Zhaoge arrive in front of the Radiant Sun Wheel and the Jade Dragon Sword, then reach out with both hands, grabbing the two spirit artifacts. The Radiant Sun Wheel shook, a violent aura erupting. In that instant, it was as if a slumbering martial grandmaster had been awakened. The Jade Dragon Sword was the same. The two spirit artifacts seemed about to clash, causing a battle that no one present could intervene in. However, Yen Zhaoge lightly waved his hands, his 10 fingers grasping the air, continuously tapping the two spirit artifacts with a strange rhythm. The Jade Dragon Sword and the Radiant Sun Wheel shook slightly once more. A strange light flickered within Yen Zhaoge's eyes as the scenes before him changed, as though he had entered a completely different heaven and earth. In this world, a golden sun hung high in the sky, and a jade-green dragon was constantly circling. Accompanied by the unceasing tapping of Yen Zhaoge's fingers, the two spirit artifacts actually gradually calmed down at the same time. It wasn't that the spirit weapons were restraining and canceling each other out, but that they were truly calm and temporarily dormant. Feng Yunsheng opened her mouth slightly. He actually calmed down the Radiant Sun Wheel so quickly. How did he do it? This is simply unheard of. Coming back to her senses, Feng Yunsheng clicked her tongue in admiration. Although I've heard of your great name in the past, now that I've met you today, I know that the rumors weren't exaggerated. They were just too conservative. Knowing someone by their reputation is not as good as meeting them in person. I've known this since I was young, but today I feel it the most. Yen Zhaoge kept the two spirit artifacts, snapping his fingers. I have many strong points, but my greatest strength is that I keep a low profile. So in the future, you will slowly realize that your thoughts today are still too conservative. Feng Yunsheng nodded, amused. All right, I'll wait and see. She asked, right, seeing that you've stepped into the mid-outer aura martial scholar realm. Why were they so shocked? While it's rare for people to break through under pressure, it's not unheard of. From what I know, some people specialize in pursuing that instant between life and death, making use of the pressure to break through their bottlenecks. A black-clothed martial practitioner beside Yen Zhaoge said, not even a month ago, young master just broke through from the inner aura martial scholar realm to the early outer aura stage. This group of people who always followed Yan Zhaoge around, seeing him break through just now, had also been struck dumb like wooden chickens, unable to believe it. He wasn't much stronger than those of the Sacred Sun clan. This time, Feng Yunsheng was no longer able to remain calm as she looked at Yan Zhaoge like she'd seen a ghost. After a long time, she blurted out, "You're human." Yan Zhaoge smiled, not speaking. Feng Yunsheng sucked in a breath of cold air, only regaining her wits after a long time. Everyone says that while you're a genius, you're still lacking a lot compared to your father that year. But from the looks of it now, at least in terms of cultivation speed, you're even stronger than your father. Before the great calamity, information had been lost, and there was already no way to verify this. And after the great calamity, under the circumstances where there were records to be found, Yan Zhaoge's father, the last disciple of Broad Creed Mountain's current chief, Yan Di, was the youngest martial scholar in history, the youngest martial grandmaster. At the same time, from the looks of it now, it was extremely likely that he would become the youngest martial saint. Yan Zhaoge smiled. As compared to breaking through from the late inner aura stage to the early outer aura stage, it was much easier for him to break through from the early to the mid-outer aura stage. Some of this was due to some lucky coincidences. At the same time as he had broken through to the outer aura stage, he had also quickly completed the second round of cleansing of his marrows, the profound spirit pill helping to condense his aura chi, the glacial dragon bone soul providing sufficient motivation for his breakthrough, as well as the special techniques that he had cultivated in, etc. Everyone says that a tiger father will not beget a dog son. No matter what, I have to work harder. Even if I don't surpass my father, at least I can't fall too far behind, right? Yan Zhaoge smiled. Moreover, in the cultivation of martial practitioners at the same bottleneck, some people will be able to pass it as easily as if it were flat ground, while others will be unable to break through no matter how hard they try, unable to advance even an inch even after a long period of time. However, after everyone has passed this bottleneck, some subsequent bottleneck might just happen to be reversed, with those who had originally been lagging behind instead surpassing those who had previously been in the lead. This is also a very common thing. Feng Yunsheng rolled her eyes at him exasperatedly. Still, I've never seen anyone as exaggerated as you, going from the early outer aura stage to the mid-outer aura stage in a single month. This is unprecedented. Okay? Yan Zhaoge raised his brows, smiling. That's why I've always said that while I have many strong points, my greatest one is that I am low-key. Saying thus, Yan Zhaoge changed the topic. Speaking of which, I'm afraid that our meeting was not a coincidence. Feng Yunsheng was taken aback. Looking at her, Yan Zhaoge said slowly, I was originally looking for Meng Wan. Don't look at me like that. She is the Sacred Sun clan's maiden of extreme Yin, while I am a disciple of Broad Creed Mountain. Thinking of a way to make her unable to win the extreme Yin bout is very normal. Yan Zhaoge stroked his lower chin. Now that I think about it, when my men were following her, she sensed it and led me over to your side. I was just saying that Meng Wan would never leave the Sacred Sun clan in private so easily. Why did she act so abnormally this time? Indeed, it was not without reason. Feng Yunsheng's gaze grew much gentler. In order to help me, Master passed away. Knowing that Xiaoshen had personally left the mountain to seek revenge on me, Little Wan ran over in hopes of being able to mediate between the two. Leading you over, it should be in hopes that Broad Creed Mountain can shelter and protect me. That way, she would not have to show herself, and would also not have to be put in a difficult position. Yan Zhaoge asked, You two have the same master? Chapter 49. Looking at Feng Yunsheng, Yan Zhaoge smiled lightly, Have you ever thought that if not for her existence, even if you had lost your extreme Een physique that year, the Sacred Sun clan would not have given up on you so easily, and would definitely have tried even harder to help you recover? Feng Yunsheng smiled and said, "It's nothing. It's obvious that I haven't thought about it, but it has nothing to do with Xiaowan." Yan Zhaoge asked, rather interestedly, "You are older than Meng Wan. You should have entered the clan earlier than her, your cultivation base also being higher. You were the Sacred Sun clan's first choice to participate in the extreme Een bout that year." Feng Yunsheng nodded calmly. "That's right. Before I left the mountain, I was already at the master stage. At that time, Xiao Wan was at the imperceptible stage. She should have only just broken through to become a martial scholar on the eve of the first extreme Een bout." Glancing at Yan Zhaoge, she said exasperatedly, "I know what you are thinking. However, me accidentally entering a perilous land of hell, the disappearance of my extreme Een physique having nothing to do with little Wan." Yan Zhaoge smiled. "Perhaps the two of you indeed have deep feelings for each other, but in luring me over to save you this time, how could it not be out of guilt and a desire to make up for it? Or perhaps, as a person with vested interests, she wants to show off her high profile and gain a sense of satisfaction by helping you?" Feng Yunsheng smiled. "I'm not used to speculating about others based on malice, but I don't deny that the possibility you mentioned does exist. It's just that I believe in Lil Wan." Feng Yunsheng's expression was calm, but her tone was resolute. Yan Zhaoge laughed, changing the topic. "Still, is she so certain that your extreme Een physique will definitely be unable to recover? Is she sure that she won't send a maiden of extreme Een to my broad Creed Mountain, vying with her for the extreme Een crown in the future? This is equivalent to giving aid to the enemy. She can actually do it." Feng Yunsheng calmly replied, "Because she is confident. It doesn't matter if the other sacred grounds have a few more maidens of extreme Een. Even little Wan has the confidence to win back the extreme Een crown for the Sacred Sun clan. Therefore, even if I were to recover, she would only be happy for me because broad Creed Mountain would value me even more. However, the extreme Een crown belongs to her, to the Sacred Sun clan. This is her confidence." Hearing her words, within Yan Zhaoge's mind surfaced the image of a young girl who was bright, yet also delicate, with a pair of eyes that moved one's heart, causing one to feel tender and tender towards her. The final victor of the first extreme Een bout, the first official owner of the extreme Een crown after its reappearance, was precisely the Sacred Sun clan's Meng Wan. According to Feng Yunsheng's speculation, she should have just stepped into the Grandmaster realm at that time. Feng Yunsheng's eyes shone with reminiscence. "Don't be fooled by that child's weak appearance. She's actually smart and strong. Be it the power of Een that he possesses or his martial arts talent, he is a super genius. Back then, I was the first choice because I joined the sect earlier and had cultivated for a longer period of time. But actually, if everyone starts from the same starting point and sets off together, I'm not completely confident that I'll have the upper hand." Yan Zhaoge laughed out loud. "Isn't the opposite meaning that Meng Wan actually doesn't have full confidence in defeating you?" Feng Yunsheng raised her eyebrows. "I'm not arrogant, nor will I belittle myself," Yan Zhaoge said in a tone that was neither salty nor mild. "Sadly, Meng Wan failed the second time. In the second extreme Een bout, Meng Wan had lost by a single move, the extreme Een crown falling into the hands of a disciple of the Water Domain's sacred ground, Jade Sea City." Feng Yunqing's expression did not change in the slightest. "I've also heard of this matter. That was because not long before the bout, little Wan had just wielded the extreme Een crown and clashed head-on with a flame devil king in the East Sea. In the second bout, she fought while injured. In the third extreme Een bout, she will let the world know that as long as nothing happens to her, the extreme Een crown will not fall into the hands of anyone else. Also, the phoenix that has undergone nirvanic rebirth, will be even more dazzling. Feng Yunqing's tone was calm, as though she was only describing something that couldn't be any more ordinary. Looking at her, the corners of Yan Zhaoga's mouth slowly revealed a smile. If these words are applicable to Meng Wan, how is it not also applicable to you? Feng Yunsheng was completely at ease. Even if senior apprentice brother Yen really has a way to help me recover my extreme Yin physique, I am currently lagging behind little Wan by too much. I dare not say that I will definitely be able to catch up to little Wan, but with such a precious chance, I will definitely grab hold of it with all my might. Broad Creed Mountain sheltered me in my time of greatest peril. Whatever the reason, the grace of a drop of water will be repaid with a gushing spring. No more useless words. Only death will do. Whatever the reason, when she had been faced with the threat of the Sacred Sun Clan disciples, Yan Zhaoga had beaten Xiao Shun and Chao Yuanlong into a sorry state, undoubtedly expressing his stance. As for whether Yan Zhaoga's personal stance could represent Broad Creed Mountain, Feng Yunxing didn't need to think too much about it now. She could only follow Yan Zhaoga's arrangements. Meanwhile, Yan Zhaoga was in a pretty good mood. Regarding Feng Yunxing's extreme Yin physique, he already had some thoughts on it, but still needed to plan and prepare. Although they had offended the Sacred Sun Clan a step further, a maiden of extreme Yin to Broad Creed Mountain was undoubtedly a huge gain. As long as this merit was confirmed, it would be of great help to Yan Zhaoga, and even to his father, Yan Di. It was a great merit. Yan Zhaoga looked at the sky. Let's go. They set off together, Yan Zhaoga continuously giving instructions. The black-clothed martial scholars all nodded and obeyed, going off to deliver the news. Although he had taken responsibility for this matter, there were some people that Yan Zhaoga still had to be notified at the first possible moment. For example, his own father or his current administrator in the East Heaven region, Broad Creed Mountain's East Elder in the East Heaven region. This matter was no small matter, far from being as simple as beating up Chao Yuanlong and the others in the Sealing Dragon Abyss. The Sacred Sun Clan's reaction would undoubtedly be much more intense. With Xiao Shun and the others having fled, there would definitely be follow-up actions. The earlier his Broad Creed Mountain received the news, the easier it would be for them to deal with it. Other than that, Yan Zhaoga also specially mentioned the reason for Feng Yunxing's extreme Yin physique being damaged back then, but got someone to find a way to inform the other sacred ground, Jade Sea City. Of the sacred grounds, Jade Sea City's relationship with the Sacred Sun Clan was the worst. Based on the principle that the enemy of my enemy is my friend, the relationship between Broad Creed Mountain and Jade Sea City was rather good, to the point of being close to that of allies. Jade Sea City's Maiden of Extreme Yin was the victor of the second Extreme Yin bout, and Meng Wan's greatest competitor in the upcoming third Extreme Yin bout. The various sacred grounds had never stopped scheming against the Sacred Sun Clan's Maidens of Extreme in these past few years. Yan Zhaoga had never trusted the Sacred Sun Clan's integrity. Naturally, he had to remind Jade Sea City of this, lest they fall into a trap. Traversing through the mountain range, as he walked, Yan Zhaoga's heart suddenly jolted slightly as he looked into the distance. The loud rumbling of the waterfall in the mountains could not drown out the voices of some people conversing with each other. Looking into the distance, Yan Zhaoga saw a group of people standing by the side of the waterfall, separated into twos and threes, seemingly in the midst of a confrontation. It's Zhao Yuan and the others? Zhao Yuan was the eldest son of the king of the Eastern Tang Kingdom, and was also very familiar with Yan Zhaoga. Together with him was also the third son of the emperor, Zhao Sheng, who was rather close to the Eastern Tang's principal elder, Yan Su. However, whether it was Zhao Yuan or Zhao Sheng, they were both currently staring at a youth with unfriendly expressions on their faces. Chapter 50. Yan Zhaoga could tell that this youth should also be a prince a brother of Zhao Yuan and the others, just that he had never seen him before. The current scene was rather interesting to Yan Zhaoge. The eldest prince, Zhao Yuan, like his father, the king of the Eastern Tang Kingdom, leaned towards Broad Creed Mountain's Yan Di's faction. Zhao Yuan himself also had some relations with the original owner of Yan Zhaoge's body. And the third prince, Zhao Sheng, unable to compete with Zhao Yuan in this area, ended up becoming closer to Yan Zhaoge's second apprentice uncle's faction. Although the king of the Eastern Tang Kingdom leaned towards Yan Di, Broad Creed Mountain's principal elder in the Eastern Tang Kingdom, Yan Su was on the other side, and Zhao Sheng's days were not that bad. If the fight for the position of Broad Creed Mountain's chief was ultimately won by Yan Zhaoge's second apprentice uncle, then the future king of the Eastern Tang Kingdom would be somewhat more uncertain. But overall, the undecided position of the Eastern Tang Crown Prince would basically be fought over between Zhao Yuan and Zhao Sheng. The two of them had not seen eye to eye with each other for a very long time, always opposing each other. It had already been a very long time since the two of them had acted together against another prince like this. On royal father's orders, we accompanied royal Uncle Jean into the mountains to capture the culprit. Zhao Sheng's voice resounded from afar. The culprit was surrounded by me and eldest brother's guards in this mountain, and the culprit was also heavily injured by me and eldest brother. If not for that, do you think you could have dealt with him? Now that you've taken advantage of the situation, you even want to monopolize the information, 16th brother. You really don't know what's good for you, don't you? Zhao Yuan similarly said in a heavy tone. 16th brother, there's no harm in sharing the credit with you, but that person's confession must not be concealed. If there are any follow-up clues, we must hurry up and continue investigating. The culprit and the Ghost Hatchet Elder are related to the abnormalities in the Sealing Dragon Abyss and cannot be taken lightly. If we are delayed, it will be hard to explain to Royal Father, and the credit will also become a mistake. Hearing the names of the Ghost Hatchet Elder and the Sealing Dragon Abyss, Yan Zhaoge's interest was piqued. Oh, interesting, let's go take a look. As Yan Zhaoge walked over, he saw that surrounded youth smiling nonchalantly. What I should do? I know what to do. I don't need to trouble you two, royal brothers, to teach me. After returning to the capital and reporting to Royal Father, everything will naturally become clear. His tone was not polite at all, and Zhao Yuan and Zhao Sheng were a little annoyed. However, now that Yan Zhaoge had appeared, the two hurriedly suppressed their anger, giving up on that youth as they first came to greet him. Zhaoge, what a coincidence. You're also in this area. Young Master Yan. The Eastern Tang Kingdom martial practitioners accompanying Zhao Yuan and Zhao Sheng all cupped their fists in unison, while the martial scholars all bowed. We greet the Broad Creed young master. In recent days, Yan Zhaoge's name had become increasingly resounding in the Eastern Tang. Not long ago, the news of his battle with Xiao Shun and Chao Yuanlong in the Luliao Mountains was still unknown. However, he had only just defeated the Sacred Sun clan's Chao Yuanlong in the Sealing Dragon Abyss and forced Xiao Shun into retreat in a contest of variations in techniques in overlooking Abyss City. This had already caused Yan Zhaoge's reputation to soar even higher, not to mention the fact that Broad Creed Mountain was a colossus that the Eastern Tang Kingdom could never hope to compare to. As princes, Zhao Yuan and Zhao Sheng had been carefully groomed by the imperial family with large amounts of resources invested into them, and they were already outstanding figures of the Eastern Tang's younger generation. The two were already martial scholars, but when they had become martial scholars, they had both been over 20 years old, and the Yan Zhaoge before them, when he had become a martial scholar, had been even younger than the current Zhao Hao. Yan Zhaoge smiled slightly. The two of you long time no see. Previously, when I was in the Eastern Tang capital, I only stayed there for a short while. I met Uncle once, but did not manage to catch up with the two of you. Who would have thought that we would actually meet here in the Luliao Mountains? Zhao Yuan said. The abnormalities in the ceiling dragon abyss are no small matter, with Royal Father personally coming over to watch over it. It is also thanks to you, Zhaoga, that the matter was related to the ghost Hatchet Elder. After investigating deeply, I discovered that the ghost Hatchet Elder was not acting independently. It is very likely that there is some hidden power behind it, with the ghost Hatchet Elder being one of its higher echelon experts, while this power also has middle and lower echelon members. Entering the Luliao Mountains this time is precisely to capture a few members of this power. To us, it is both an assignment and also a tempering experience. Yan Zhaoga nodded. To Zhao Yuan and Zhao Sheng, this was also a chance for them to gain some face in front of the Eastern Tang's ministers, as well as earn some merit points. In the end, it seemed like the peaches had been picked up by others, taking advantage of them. No wonder the two Zhao brothers were so unhappy. Zhao Sheng glanced back at that youth, saying unhappily, 16th brother, why aren't you coming over to pay your respects? That youth looked calmly at Yan Zhaoga, saying mildly, greetings. Looking at him, the corners of Yan Zhaoga's mouth twitched slightly. If I didn't see wrongly, I actually saw arrogance and disdain within his gaze. Yan Zhaoga was a little speechless as he appraised the youth before him. Around 17 years of age, mid qi-directing body refinement, having opened up the qi ocean within the Dantian. Not born of a sacred ground. Having such a cultivation base at this age, it could already be considered extremely outstanding and rare. Especially looking at this youth's clothes, while he was a prince, he clearly wasn't valued much, the resources he received most likely limited. However, no matter how one looked at it, whether it was his personal strength or his background, they were all completely incomparable to Yan Zhaoga. However, within his eyes, Yan Zhaoga clearly saw a disdain that flashed for a brief moment, and his attitude towards Yan Zhaoga was already no longer one that was neither servile nor overbearing, instead appearing arrogant and rude. However, Yan Zhaoga could clearly feel that the other party was truly disdainful. It was not fearlessness brought about by ignorance, but rather came from the bottom of his heart, stemming from his pride and confidence in himself. As this youth saw it, it was a matter of course. Just like how a martial saint or a martial grandmaster looked at a martial scholar and a martial artist, a strange feeling arose within Yan Zhaoga's heart. By the side, Zhao Yuan's face was sunken, his aura qi restraining his voice as he sent a sound transmission to Yan Zhaoga. Zhaoga, don't lower yourself to his level. This is my 16th brother, Zhao Hao. He wasn't like this before, being a yes man and completely ordinary. Half a year ago, he seemed to have suddenly gained enlightenment, his martial cultivation advancing at a tremendous pace. However, he also became a little arrogant and rude. Zhao Yuan said half doubtfully, half angrily, this time we surrounded some bandits in the mountains in pursuit of them, heavily injuring them. In the end, they were taken advantage of by him. If they were taken advantage of, then so be it. After interrogating them for some useful information, he directly killed them. When we asked him what he knew, he didn't say anything. Yan Zhaoga clicked his tongue in wonder. Strange. However, Yan Zhaoga did not have any intention of interfering. While he was familiar with Zhao Yuan, at the end of the day, Zhao Hao was also the son of the king of the Eastern Tang Kingdom. As for the news that Zhao Hao had hidden, it naturally couldn't be hidden from his father. Through the king of the Eastern Tang Kingdom, Yan Zhaoga would also know about it. As for Zhao Hao's rudeness and arrogance, Yan Zhaoga felt it more strange. Either the other party was a madman. If he wasn't, where did his confidence come from? False bravado and concealment were obviously two different things. Yan Zhaoga pondered within his heart, his expression calm. Others all thought that he wouldn't lower himself to Zhao Hao's level. Zhao Hao raised his brows, regarding Yan Zhaoge's action of ignoring him other than disdain. There was also some ridicule within his gaze. Zhao Sheng, on the other hand, felt slightly disappointed at Yan Zhaoge's lack of reaction. Chapter 51. Zhao Sheng looked at Zhao Hao with an unfriendly expression. Zhao Hao glanced at him and shook his head with a smile. Zhao Sheng was already a Zhongshe realm martial artist. Logically speaking, it should have been a piece of cake for him to deal with a physical body cultivator like him. However, there wasn't the slightest bit of fear in Zhao Hao's eyes. Instead, he seemed very calm. There was a hint of disdain in his calmness. Yan Zhaoge's eyes narrowed slightly. The way he looks at Zhao Sheng is no different from how he looks at me. In his eyes, Zhao Sheng and I are on the same level. Yan Zhaoge laughed soundlessly. Zhao Hao asked indifferently, "What kind of punishment does third brother want me to drink?" Zhao Sheng snorted coldly. 16th brother's cultivation has improved by leaps and bounds these days, but your actual combat experience is inevitably lacking. Third brother has some subordinates who can practice with you. 16th brother, accumulate more experience so that you won't only be able to deal with dying people in the future. If you run into a real tough opponent, you'll be the unlucky one. The disdain in Zhao Hao's eyes deepened. He looked at Zhao Sheng like an adult looking at an ignorant child playing around. Without another word, he unsheathed his sword and stood there quietly. Who wants advice? In the eyes of others, it might not seem like much, but Yan Zhaoge's discernment far surpassed that of everyone else present. From Yan Zhaoge's perspective, with a sword in hand, Zhao Hao's aura immediately changed. It was even more untamed, arrogant, sharp, and unsheathed. His entire person was like an unsheathed sharp sword, as if he was going to soar into the sky and cut through the blue dome of heaven. This was a type of pure power. It was hard to describe, but it truly existed. At this moment, Zhao Hao was still a body refinement martial artist, and he wasn't hiding his cultivation. However, his aura seemed to surpass most people in this world. It was as if martial grandmasters were not worth mentioning in front of him. Yan Zhaoge raised his brows. Interesting could it be, although Zhao Sheng wished that he could beat Zhao Hao half to death with his own hands, he was, after all, a grandmaster, and more than 10 years older than Zhao Hao. Although Zhao Hao's actions were very disrespectful, in front of so many people, with Yan Zhaoge also present, Zhao Sheng still suppressed the thought of personally making a move. However, he naturally did not intend to let Zhao Hao have an easy time. Zhao Hao was at the 8th level of the body refinement realm, the middle stage of the qi conducting realm. The opponent Zhao Sheng found for him was also in the middle stage of the qi conducting realm, but his aura was ferocious. It was clear that he had lived a life of blood on the edge of a knife and was incomparably experienced. His murderous aura was so thick that it could almost frighten an opponent who didn't have much combat experience and turn them into a lamb at his mercy. However, Zhao Hao effortlessly defeated his opponent in a single round. With a single slash, his opponent's arm was sent flying into the sky. The degree of fierceness caused everyone to look askance. "How dare you?" Zhao Sheng's face was ashen. With a wave of his hand, a swordsman in the late stage of the qi conducting realm stepped out from the crowd. This swordsman was at the 9th level of body refinement, the late stage of qi conducting, and was not far from the 10th level of refinement. Zhao Hao didn't seem to mind at all. He raised his sword and smiled. "It's all the same." The result of the battle once again made the spectators' jaws drop. The victor was still Zhao Hao. Zhao Hao laughed and said, "Is the next one in the refinement realm, or are you going to do it yourself, third brother?" As he said this, crackling sounds could be heard all around his body, followed by the indistinct sound of thunder. The sound of thunder did not originate from outside, but rather originated from within Zhao Hao's body. Everyone was taken aback. Inner qi entering the bones, marrow cleansing by thunder. This is the first time he has cleansed his marrows after breaking through to the late stage of the qi conducting realm. Standing beside Yan Zhaoge, Feng Yinshen couldn't help but smile as she glanced at Yan Zhaoge. While she didn't speak, she clearly recalled the scene of Yan Zhaoge facing Xiao Shen earlier. Yan Zhaoge, however, didn't smile, instead looking calmly at Zhao Hao. This person still hasn't used his full strength. He hasn't displayed the killing moves of the sword he is truly proficient in. The things that Yan Zhaoge could see were much more than what the others could see. Successive victories in successive battles rely on experience and knowledge that far surpasses that of his opponent, as well as his control over the sword in his hand. Just like me, a single bamboo branch can also be used as a sword. Without using any orochi, I can still beat up a martial scholar of the martial refinement realm. This person's attainments in the Tao of the sword are extremely high. Wooden swords, bamboo swords, even using his fingers to replace swords, the swordless stage of using qi as a sword is also nothing difficult for him. It's just that he is deeply attached to the sword, which is why he is even more unconstrained by material objects. With a sword in hand, he has already attained the Tao. Yan Zhaoge laughed, suddenly enlightened half a year ago. Ha! Zhao Hao was currently overflowing with a domineering air as he held his sword horizontally. Does third brother still have any subordinates? Otherwise, does third brother intend to personally go up? What about eldest brother? Do you want to come and play as well? I don't really care. Zhao Sheng's face was sunken as he grit his teeth and laughed. 16th brother, not bad, I didn't notice it before, but you're really getting too full of yourself a little too early. As he said this, he was about to stride forward. With Zhao Hao's provocation like this, there was no longer any need for him to restrain himself, and also no longer had to worry about the king of the Eastern Tang Kingdom blaming him afterwards. Between blood-related brothers, there should be mutual affection. Exchanging pointers at the same cultivation level is still fine, but for a martial scholar to exchange blows with a martial artist is a little too much. Just then, a voice suddenly resounded from afar. The next moment, a middle-aged man with a dignified expression appeared in front of them. He first looked at Yan Zhaoge, nodding, "Zhaoge, long time no see." Yan Zhaoge laughed. "Your Highness Prince Jean is even more elegant than before. The person who had come was the royal brother of the king of the Eastern Tang Kingdom, the number 2 expert of the Eastern Tang royal family, Prince Jean Zhao Shilai. Yan Zhaoge was also acquainted with him in the past. However, this person's stance was towards the Sacred Sun Clan, as he was the greatest springboard for the Sacred Sun Clan to enter the Eastern Tang Kingdom. The Eastern Tang Kingdom's crown prince position had always been undecided, largely because of this person. Whether it was the powers under him or the Sacred Sun Clan behind him, they were all exerting pressure on the king of the Eastern Tang Kingdom, hoping to make the emperor's younger brother instead of the crown prince. In this world where martial arts reigned supreme, where individual strength could overturn the heavens and earth, many secular rules no longer applied. For example, if the king of the Eastern Tang Kingdom suddenly died today, then the Eastern Tang Kingdom would not only have lost a monarch, but also a martial grandmaster. To the overall strength of the Eastern Tang, this would be a huge loss. Whether it was Zhao Yuan or Zhao Sheng, they were only martial scholars. Even if they ascended to the throne, in terms of high-level strength, they were destined to be unable to replace their father within a short period of time. While Prince Jean was weaker than the king of the Eastern Tang Kingdom, he was also a martial grandmaster expert. If he loyally assisted the new king, then it would be fine. But if he himself had other thoughts, the situation would instantly become complicated. In a secular dynasty, the old emperor would arrange for a successor before his death, and would naturally sweep away any unstable factors. However, Prince Jin's situation was something that even the king of the Eastern Tang Kingdom found troublesome. After all, Zhao Shilai was also a martial grandmaster, and also an important part of the Eastern Tang Kingdom's strength. If he were to be killed, it would still be the Eastern Tang that would suffer. Moreover, behind Zhao Shilai stood the Sacred Sun clan. Even if the king of the Eastern Tang Kingdom had the support of Broad Creed Mountain, it would still be hard for him to make a move lightly. The situation in the Eastern Tang Kingdom was currently maintained in a fragile equilibrium. While the king of the Eastern Tang Kingdom and Broad Creed Mountain held the advantage, the hidden dangers were similarly not small. After exchanging greetings with Yan Zhaoga, Zhao Shilai chuckled as he looked towards the three Zhao brothers. If you want to spar, there's no need to use force at all. Chapter 52. Towards Prince Jin's words, Yan Zhaoga snorted disdainfully. This Prince Jin, who coveted the throne of the Eastern Tang, definitely did not do so out of good intentions. Although he was a martial grandmaster, in terms of knowledge and experience, he could not compare to Yan Zhaoga. He could see that Zhao Hao's strength was extraordinary, but he was unable to detect any further clues. As Zhao Shilai saw it, although Zhao Hao had domineeringly defeated two martial artists, if he provoked Zhao Yuan and Zhao Sheng, who were already martial scholars, he would undoubtedly be insta-killed. In truth, it was not just Zhao Shilai. Almost everyone present felt this way. Looking at the Zhao Hao who had taken the initiative to provoke him, now, it was like looking at a madman. Yan Zhaoga, however, did not see it this way. It would still be very difficult for Zhao Hao to cross the heavenly chasm between the martial scholar realm and the martial scholar realm, but facing Zhao Yuan and Zhao Sheng, he would not be completely helpless. The gap in the martial Dao between the two was probably very large, and the gap in their experience and knowledge was even greater. It would not be an exaggeration to say that they were as different as the heavens and the earth. The gaze with which Zhao Hao looked at Zhao Shilai actually contained some disdain, just that compared to martial scholars, he regarded him with a little more importance. Zhao Shilai naturally did not have any good feelings towards Zhao Hao, but as he saw it, Zhao Hao could help him suppress Zhao Yuan and Zhao Sheng. The more intense and evenly matched the internal strife of the Eastern Tang Kingdom's king, the better it would be for Zhao Shilai. Zhao Hao had originally been nothing special, but now that he had suddenly risen up, he was a good chess piece for Zhao Shilai. As for whether Zhao Hao would become stronger than Zhao Yuan in the future and affect his position, that was a different matter altogether. At the end of the day, Zhao Hao was currently just a martial artist. What is my Eastern Tang Kingdom most famous for in the East Heaven region? Alchemy and medicine? Wouldn't it be better to just compete in this, not harming our harmony? Zhao Yuan and Zhao Sheng were also not profligate sons. In the entire Eastern Tang royal family, alchemy and medicine were all experts. Just like practicing martial arts, it was a part of their tradition. The Eastern Tang's greatest alchemy power, the Pill Pavilion, was actually backed by the royal family. For Zhao Shilai to make such a suggestion, he obviously has a certain level of understanding towards Zhao Hao. This is interesting. Yan Zhaoga did not speak, coldly watching Zhao Shilai's performance from the sidelines. Zhao Yuan and Zhao Sheng also thought of this point. They were somewhat hesitant, but it was not good for them to show weakness. Of the two of them, one was the son of the empress, the other was the son of the imperial concubine, while Zhao Hao's birth mother was only a palace maid. Both of them had grown up in a much better environment and education than Zhao Hao. In a competition of martial Dao, a grandmaster fighting a body refining martial artist, no matter what, there was no glory in winning. Both of them glanced at Zhao Hao and nodded in agreement. Although Zhao Hao's martial arts strength had improved by leaps and bounds, Zhao Yuan and Zhao Yu did not believe that Zhao Hao could beat them in alchemy. Zhao Shilai smiled and said, "Pill Pavilion's first seat consecrated elder, Old Mr. Wang happens to be here as well. Young Master Yan's family has a long history of learning, and his knowledge is extensive. This king is also somewhat proficient in the Tao of alchemy, and together with old Mr. Wang and the other two, we can comment on your alchemy. This is a rare opportunity. Yan Zhaoge smiled non-committally as some martial practitioners in the distance escorted an old man over. Seeing this old man, Zhao Yuan and Zhao Sheng immediately greeted him. "Hello, Elder Wang." Only Zhao Hao remained where he was, calmly nodding at the old man. Not only did old Mr. Wang not feel offended, he also nodded at Zhao Hao. Seeing this, Zhao Yuan and Zhao Sheng's hearts instantly jumped. And following that, as old Mr. Wang understood the situation, he shook his head. What else is there to compare? The 16th prince's alchemy skills are even above this old man's. At this age, at this cultivation level, the level of his alchemy skills is something this old man has never seen before in my life. His identity was special, and his temper was also very straightforward. He was somewhat unrestrained in his words. As his words left his mouth, Zhao Yuan and Zhao Sheng were both stunned. In the Eastern Tang Kingdom, the only person who could compete with this old man in alchemy was the king of the Eastern Tang Kingdom. Even Prince Jin, Zhao Shilai, a great grandmaster, was inferior to old Sir Wang, who was only at the grandmaster realm. Zhao Hao's expression was mild as he said simply, "Martial scholar realm, your alchemy skills can also be considered not bad." A smile appeared on Zhao Shilai's face. This is a situation that even this king does not understand. Who would have thought that our Eastern Tang would produce a steed of 1,000 li in this area? It'd be strange if you didn't know. Undetected by others, Yan Zhaoge quickly rolled his eyes. If you didn't know, you would have come up with such an idea. But how did you know? Yan Zhaoge's gaze passed between Zhao Shilai and Zhao Hao, finally landing on the Pill Pavilion's first priest, old Mr. Wang. Zhao Yuan and Zhao Sheng's faces both turn a little ugly, with Zhao Hao smiling proudly. In alchemy, it is my two royal brothers who have no chance at all. How about we compete in martial arts? Yan Zhaoge, who had not spoken all this time, now opened his mouth. As Prince Jin said, such a small matter, there is no need to harm our amicable relationship. Let's compete in alchemy. Zhao Yuan looked at Yan Zhaoge in surprise. Even Zhao Shilai was a little exception. Yan Zhaoge said, "But since we just happen to be here, why don't we add a little spice to this competition?" Zhao Shilai knit his brows slightly. "Oh, I wonder which side Zhaoge wants to bet on." If Yan Zhaoge were to bet on Zhao Hao, Zhao Shilai would have some misgivings in his heart. As he saw it, this was not just a gamble. Rather, it was a signal that Yan Zhaoge, as well as the Yan Di behind him, wanted to give up on Zhao Yuan amongst the descendants of the king of the Eastern Tang Kingdom, and instead support Zhao Hao. Zhao Yuan's expression did not change, but his gaze was clearly nervously looking at Yan Zhaoge. "I'll bet on brother Zhao Yuan," Yan Zhaoge said straightforwardly. Zhao Yuan let out a sigh of relief, while the others were even more confused. Zhao Shilai said, "Thanks to old Mr. Wang's words, this king naturally thinks more highly of royal nephew Zhao Hao." Yan Zhaoge nodded. "Then it's settled. I wonder what Zhaoge wants to bet on. I'll bet on Prince Jin's share of the Pill Pavilion." Hearing his words, Zhao Shilai's gaze abruptly flickered as he stared at Yan Zhaoge. Not only did the Pill Pavilion hold the leading position in the Eastern Tang Kingdom in the field of pills, it was also the Eastern Tang's greatest source of income from external trade. The biggest backer behind it was the Eastern Tang royal family, and the biggest leader was naturally the king of the Eastern Tang Kingdom. However, Zhao Shilai also held a very large share of the profits. The appearance of the smoke cloud powder had brought with it a huge profit, even beginning to squeeze out the market for similar types of pills in the entire East Heaven region. The others were all shocked. It was just a small competition, but the stakes were actually so large. Wasn't this a little too hasty? But thinking about it carefully, with Yan Zhaoge's background, what else of Zhao Shirlie's could there be that Yan Zhaoge would be interested in? Thinking about it this way, everyone felt at ease, just that they could not help but feel emotional in their hearts. With such an awesome father, it really was comfortable. As for my wager, I believe that Prince Jean will also be very interested in it. Saying thus, Yan Zhaoge waved his hand, the low-grade spirit artifact, the radiant sun wheel appearing before him. Zhao Shirlai blurted out, "Xiao Shun's radiant sun wheel?" The others were all greatly shocked. The Sacred Sun Clan's Xiao Shun's protective spirit artifact. How could it be? How could it be on Yan Zhaoge? Could it be? Yan Zhaoge said calmly. Xiao Shun was defeated by me, so this thing naturally became my spoils of war. I will use this to gamble with Prince Jean. It should be enough, right? Zhao Shirlie's breathing became heavy. Even for him, a martial grandmaster, a spirit artifact, was also an extremely rare treasure. His share in the Eastern Tang's economy was not only of economic value, but also related to the long-term issue of the throne in the future. It was very hard to accurately compare the value of the two. However, that spirit artifact was Xiao Shun's. Now that it had fallen into Yan Zhaoge's hands, to Xiao Shun it was undoubtedly a great humiliation. If Zhao Shirlai could help him get it back, it would undoubtedly be a huge favor. Not mentioning Xiao Shun, the person standing behind him was the Grand Elder of the Sacred Sun Clan. It was just that, seeing that Yan Zhaoge knew that Zhao Hao's alchemy skills were very high, yet still dared to propose such a wager, Zhao Shirlai could not help but feel uneasy. How much confidence did he have to dare to face such difficulties head-on? Logic told Zhao Shirlai that it would be best not to gamble with Yan Zhaoge. The others were also looking at Yan Zhaoge in shock. They had not thought that the late outer aura stage, Xiao Shun, would actually lose to Yan Zhaoge. Only Zhao Hao seemed to have completely not realized what it meant for Yan Zhaoge to have seized Xiao Shun's radiant sun wheel, as he still had a look of mild disdain on his face. Perhaps he understood the meaning behind it, but still did not see it in his eyes. Zhao Shirlie's intention to make use of him, he might have understood it, but he similarly did not mind it. In the future, he would naturally repay him. Looking at Yan Zhaoge, Zhao Hao let out a cold snort. Humph, Broad Creed Mountain, someone from Broad Creed Mountain. Uncle Jean, since he wants to gamble, then let's do it, Zhao Hao said calmly before flicking his sleeve, a small, intricate pill furnace directly landing on the ground. Within the pill furnace, a small ember shot up without any prior warning, some faint green smoke rising in the air, actually gradually condensing into the image of mountains and rivers. Seeing this scene, the others were all somewhat at a loss. Old Mr. Wang, however, abruptly opened his eyes wide. Zhao Shirlie's eyes lit up. Talented, willful, arrogant, but the corners of Yan Zhaoge's mouth drew back slightly. But he's also stupid enough. Chapter 53. A phenomenon caused by the smoke from the pill furnace. Old Mr. Wang stared at the small pill furnace on the ground, his eyes wide. This is something that can only happen when one's attainments in alchemy have reached the point of perfection. His alchemy skills were firmly within the top 3 in the Eastern Tang Kingdom, and it was only by chance that he could cause such a phenomenon to occur. After a long while, he suddenly raised his head to look at Zhao Hao. Previously at the Pill Pavilion, you didn't bring out all your skills? Zhao Hao smiled proudly. Now, it might not be all, Old Mr. Wang choked for a moment, before asking, last time, when I asked 16th Prince about his master, 16th Prince had always been unwilling to tell me. I wonder if you can tell me now. This old man has no other intentions. I only wish to meet that expert. Zhao Hao said mildly. I said before that no one taught me alchemy. I cultivated it myself. Whether you believe me or not is up to you. Being contradicted, old Mr. Wang was not angered, only shaking his head and sighing. If 16th Prince is unwilling to say, this old man cannot force him. He swiveled his head to look at Zhao Yuan and Zhao Sheng, sighing. The first prince and the third prince's alchemy skills were personally taught by this old man. This old man is also well aware of their level. Amongst those of the same age, it can also be considered rare. Just that. Sigh. Old Mr. Wang did not finish his words, but everyone could hear the unspoken meaning in his words. He glanced at Yan Zhaoge, intentionally or otherwise. As the old man saw it, having said this much, it was actually already a very obvious hint to Yan Zhaoge. If Zhao Yuan and Zhao Hao competed in alchemy, there would be no wins or losses. If Yan Zhaoge insisted on the bet, it would be as good as giving the Radiant Sun Wheel to Zhao Shilai for free. In Mr. Wang's opinion, let alone Zhao Yuan, even if Yan Zhaoge personally participated, he would definitely not be able to beat Zhao Hao in alchemy. After all, he had never heard of Yan Zhaoge being proficient in the art of alchemy. As one of the great sacred grounds of the world, Broad Creed Mountain naturally did not lack divine alchemists. Yan Zhaoge's heritage might have a few tricks up his sleeves, but the chances of him beating Zhao Hao were too slim, because according to old Mr. Wang's predictions, other than some techniques that he was temporarily unable to use due to his low cultivation base, Zhao Hao's alchemy skills were already comparable to any divine alchemist in the world. Yan Zhaoge was silent for a moment, seeming to indeed hesitate as he raised his head to look at Zhao Shilai. What does your Highness Prince Jin think? Zhao Shilai narrowed his eyes and slowly said, with something to liven things up, this competition is naturally more meaningful. If Zhaoge insists on gambling, then this king will accompany you. Staring at him, Yan Zhaoge suddenly broke into a smile. All right, let's do it then. Looking at Yan Zhaoge's smile, Zhao Shilai vaguely felt that something was wrong. After thinking for a moment, he said, what we are competing in is alchemy skills, not who has unique and precious elixirs or elixir recipes. Everyone can just concoct the same simple pill together. The overall evaluation is based on the speed, the quality of the pill, and the amount of medicinal dregs left. First is the quality, then the speed, and finally, how many medicinal ingredients are used. Yan Zhaoge chuckled, knowing that Zhao Shilai was afraid that he would provide some secret pill of Broad Creed Mountain for Zhao Yuan to keep up appearances. His worry was not without reason, but Yan Zhaoge did not need Broad Creed Mountain's pills to leak out. He had read many pill recipes from the Divine Palace's collection, many of which were top-grade pills. However, from the start, Yan Zhaoge had also not intended to use this method. Zhao Hao still maintained an indifferent attitude. It's fine. Even if it's a competition of who can ultimately concoct a higher and better pill, I will also accompany you. Hearing his words, Zhao Shilai glanced at Zhao Hao. This kid was currently also gradually giving him a feeling of threat, but also more like a fat sheep to be slaughtered. Yan Zhaoge shot Zhao Hao a sidelong glance, thinking the smoke cloud powder was indeed made by you. Although it was a little strange, and he could not be 100% certain, the more Yan Zhaoge looked at him, the more he felt that this Zhao Hao's figure vaguely overlapped with that of a person who had already been buried in the annals of history, a legend, arrogant, unresigned to being beneath others, unbridled and unbridled, showing off his abilities. The martial saint of the past, supreme in the Tao of alchemy and the Tao of the sword, the pill fire divine, sword gouge. Without a doubt, the smoke cloud powder that had suddenly appeared in the Eastern Tang market now originated from Zhao Hao, because they had interacted with the pill pavilion before Zhao Shilai and old Mr. Wang had come to know of his superb alchemy skills. The king of the Eastern Tang kingdom definitely knew of this as well. However, in his opinion, it was a good thing that he had another talented son. Naturally, He was happy to see it happen. At this moment, perhaps they only thought that Zhao Hao had a fortuitous encounter, or that he had been hiding his strength all along. However, he did not expect that the body of the 16th prince, who used to be ordinary and unremarkable, had changed into another soul. He was a reincarnated saint-state expert. But why do I feel so stupid? Yan Zhaoge was a little speechless, feeling very curious. Was it because he was used to being high and mighty in the past that he was unable to adjust to the differences brought about by the change in his identity? Had he not adapted to the current situation, or did he not want to adapt at all? In any case, he was really dumb, the elixir fire divine. Sword Gouge might have been arrogant in the past, but to be able to reach such heights, he shouldn't be so stupid, right? But to me, the more stupid you are, the better. Yan Zhaoge actually didn't care whether Gouge was reincarnated or not. However, it was rumored that he was not friendly towards Broad Creed Mountain. From Zhao Hao's earlier words and actions, Yan Zhaoge could also vaguely feel this. This was the reason why he was standing by Zhao Shilye's side and challenging him. While he didn't understand the reason, since the other party dared to challenge him, Yan Zhaoge didn't mind it in the slightest as he sent a slap flying back. It was already said earlier that we would be competing in pill concoction techniques. Naturally, it wouldn't involve the level of the pill or pill formulas. Yan Zhaoge smiled mildly. Let's directly begin. Zhao Hao was not polite at all, opening the furnace first. That smoke that resembled mountains and rivers converged, resembling the real world, containing the medicinal ingredients, and slowly returning them to the furnace. Everything seemed like a dream. Zhao Hao began concocting pills, the smoke rising unceasingly, the scene of mountains and rivers appearing on the surface of the furnace once more. Everyone could only see the changing of the mountains and the sea, as though the vast ocean had turned into mulberry fields in an instant, not waiting for them to regain their wits. Zhao Hao clapped his palm high into the air, the smoke completely returning to the pill furnace once more. The next moment, the furnace fire was extinguished. Everyone was taken aback. It's over. Zhao Hao's gaze swept over Yan Zhaoge, Zhao Shilye, and old Mr. Wang as he said casually, "You guys go ahead and check. It's good that you know what's good." His gaze paused on Yan Zhaoge for a moment longer, the ridicule within the depths of his gaze growing stronger. The pill that Zhao Hao had concocted was the most ordinary healing pill on the market. After the appearance of the smoke cloud powder, it had already been pushed to the point where there was no market for it. However, after checking it, Zhao Shilye and old Mr. Wang were both shocked. The healing pill that Zhao Hao had concocted was actually almost on the same level as the ordinary smoke cloud powder. Old Mr. Wang sighed. The smoke cloud powder that the pill pavilion was currently selling was also divided into different grades. At the very top, it had always been the batch that Zhao Hao had concocted regularly. Now that the healing pill that Zhao Hao had concocted was almost on the same level as the smoke cloud powder that others had concocted, the old man could only sigh in admiration once more. As for Zhao Yuan and Zhao Sheng, their expressions were both gloomy. They really couldn't afford to directly admit defeat just like this. However, if they were to compete, the result would only be even more humiliating. Zhao Yuan unconsciously looked towards Yan Zhaoge, but still felt despair. First, not mentioning whether or not Yan Zhaoge could beat Zhao Hao in alchemy. Even if he could, it would also be impossible for Yan Zhaoge to compete in his place. And alchemy was also not something that could be raised by a few words of guidance in an instant. No matter how one looked at it, there was no hope of winning this competition. Chapter 54. And after slapping the right side of his face, he slapped the left side. In the future, I might become Zhao Hao's stepping stone for all sorts of strange reasons. Yan Zhaoge curled his lips. Alchemy requires talent, as well as accumulation. Even for me, there is indeed no way for someone to achieve it quickly. It's even more impossible for me to take the field myself and fight Zhao Hao for real. If we do that, regardless of whether we win or lose, we'll be making Zhao Hao proud. However, do you think that I won't be able to do anything? Under Yan Zhaoga's guidance, Zhao Yuan did not retrieve his own pill furnace, nor did he walk towards Zhao Hao's pill furnace, instead directly coming before old Mr. Wang. Elder Wang, can you give me 16th Brother's healing pill? Old Mr. Wang frowned slightly, clearly displeased. Your Highness, do you not trust me and think that I am siding with 16th Prince? Zhao Yuan smiled and shook his head. Of course not. Please don't misunderstand. Elder Wang, I simply want to see the pill that 16th Brother has refined. Looking at Yan Zhaoga and Zhao Shilai, old Mr. Wang finally handed the treatment pill over to Zhao Yuan. He sighed. Not only does it take a short time to use, but the medicinal effects are also good. Look at the base of his pill furnace. There is not even a bit of dregs. All the medicinal ingredients are perfectly used, and there is no waste at all. As soon as he said that, everyone's heart sank. Zhao Hao had achieved perfection in all three aspects. Even if Zhao Yuan were to erupt with extraordinary power, he would at most be tied with Zhao Hao, unless the effects of the healing pills he refined were better than Zhao Hao's. But was that still a healing pill? Zhao Yuan's expression did not change. Weighing the healing pill in his hand, he turned to look at Zhao Hao. 16th Brother's alchemy skills are indeed superb. Zhao Hao said lightly, What do you want to say, big brother? Zhao Yuan unhurriedly said, 16th Brother's alchemy skills are outstanding, to the point that you can even cause the smoke in the pill furnace to form a strange phenomenon. Big Brother must also express his admiration. However, the great Tao of alchemy is profound and vast, and there are as many techniques as the ocean. Zhao Hao directly interrupted him. There are indeed many alchemy methods, but I know what you know, and I know what you don't know. There's no need to say too much. Let's get straight to the point. Zhao Yuan was not annoyed by his interruption. He still said slowly, 16th Brother, you have great courage. Since that's the case, I, your big brother, will embarrass myself today. I've inadvertently learned some superficial knowledge of alchemy. I'll give it a try today. As for you, 16th Brother, you don't need to be stronger than me. As long as you can do the same as me, I will admit defeat today. What do you think, Brother 16th? Hearing his words, Zhao Hao looked somewhat mockingly at Zhao Yuan, then at Yan Zhaoga. Strange technique? Ha! This old man spent half a lifetime back then, collecting all the legacies left behind after the great calamity in the entire 8 extremities world, as well as the techniques of the alchemists after the calamity. Other than the unique pill formulas and techniques of the Holy Lands, there is nothing in this world that I don't know about alchemy. Your broad Creed Mountains alchemy indeed has some unique areas, but none of them are something that Zhao Yuan's foundation can grasp. Other unorthodox techniques obtained by chance, they're all leftovers from back then. Zhao Hao laughed nonchalantly. Even if it's a draw, it'll still count as my loss. Zhao Yuan smiled and nodded, suddenly taking out a golden needle and piercing it into that healing pill. Seeing this, everyone was taken aback, not understanding what exactly Zhao Yuan was doing. Only Zhao Hao and old Mr. Wang's eyes erupted with a shocking light. They saw Zhao Yuan's needle move like it was flying, piercing into the healing pill 9 times in succession. Within the healing pill, a faint mist actually surged out from the needle's holes. Everyone was stunned. They naturally knew that this mist had surged out because of Zhao Yuan's actions. However, the pill was not a balloon. How could there be gas coming out from within? Having done all this, Zhao Yuan returned the pill to old Mr. Wang. Old Wang, please appraise it once more. Old Mr. Wang sucked in a deep breath. After inspecting it, he instead fell silent, as though he was thinking hard about it. Not saying a word, he handed the pill to Prince Jean beside him, Zhao Shilai. After looking at it, Zhao Shilai's eyebrows instantly shot up. The remnant furnace smoke within the pill has completely disappeared, its medicinal effects reaching a whole new level, truly touching upon the limits of what a healing pill can achieve in theory. But how was it done? Old Mr. Wang let out a breath of turbid air, his body actually trembling slightly as he looked at Zhao Yuan. Forgive this old man's old eyes, but is the first prince's technique the golden needle liberating pill technique? Zhao Yuan smiled and nodded. Old Wang has good eyes. It is indeed the golden needle liberating pill technique. Old Mr. Wang's body stopped trembling now as he let out a long sigh towards the heavens, feeling extremely satisfied. Who would have thought that this old man would actually be able to see a miraculous alchemy technique from before the great calamity in my life? I have not lived in vain. Zhao Shilai, Zhao Sheng, and the others were all stunned. Old Wang, after stabilizing his emotions, old Mr. Wang said, the golden needle liberating pill technique can completely expel all the remnant furnace smoke within the pill, thereby greatly raising the medicinal effects and quality of the finished pill. Before the great calamity, this was also one of the peak alchemy techniques. After the great calamity, it had long since been lost, with only a few simple words remaining now, resembling a legend. Looking at Zhao Hao, Zhao Yuan said neither hurriedly nor slowly, I also only know a little bit of it. Please excuse me. Zhao Hao's eyes erupted with a shocking light, but he was not looking at Zhao Yuan, instead staring fixedly at Yan Zhaoge. Yan Zhaoge looked at Zhao Hao, seemingly calm, but actually very unscrupulously laughing. One's personality determines one's fate. I love dealing with idiotic youths like me the most. Zhao Sheng's gaze also fell on Yan Zhaoge, as he instructed the guard beside him in a low voice, also retrieving a treatment pill and a golden needle. He observed Zhao Yuan's treatment pill, then felt out its position, also stabbing it with 9 needles. However, the treatment pill in his hands did not react in the slightest. There is indeed a special technique. It is not a coincidence. Zhao Sheng sighed in disappointment. Smiling at Zhao Sheng, Zhao Yuan took out a brand new treatment pill, concocting it according to the same procedure. The fog rose once more. Zhao Shilai's gaze also shifted between Yan Zhaoge and Zhao Yuan, as he suddenly said, the treatment pill can be used, but what about this smoke cloud powder? The guard behind him hurriedly took out a bag of medicinal powder, which was the powdery smoke cloud powder. Seeing this, Zhao Yuan's eyes narrowed slightly. It's fine. Use your own aura chi to condense it into a pill. Afterwards, follow my instructions and stab 9 needles. Yan Zhaoge sent over a sound transmission in a relaxed manner. Hearing his words, Zhao Yuan instantly relaxed. He took out the smoke and cloud powder, and with a wave of his stellar energy, the powder immediately condensed into the shape of a pill. Zhao Shilai stared at it intently. Although the medicinal powder also looked like a pill, it was still powder. It was completely different from a healing pill. But when Zhao Yuan inserted 9 needles, mist surged out again. The mist actually split into 2, one black and one white. The black color dissipated in the air, and the white color returned to the pill condensed from the smoke cloud powder. After examining the medicinal effects, old Mr. Wang was full of praises. Zhao Shilai was completely speechless. He turned to look at Zhao Hao. The confidence and arrogance in Zhao Hao's eyes were finally gone. Instead, they became solemn and serious. Without saying a word, Zhao Hao also took out a bag of smoke cloud powder, condensed it into a pill, and asked Zhao Yuan for golden needles. He did not insert the needle for a long time. Instead, he frowned and thought for a long time. After a long time, Zhao Hao finally inserted the needles. The first needle was fine. The second needle was fine. The third needle, the fourth needle, number 5, bang. Chapter 55. Zhao Sheng didn't understand the technique at all. His 9 needles, all useless, only having managed to poke 9 tiny holes on the pill. Zhao Hao, on the other hand, had used his inner qi to vibrate the pill as he stabbed in, trying to achieve the desired effect. But sadly, while he was stronger than Zhao Sheng, he still couldn't fully grasp this golden needle liberating pill technique. Zhao Hao stood where he was, retreating as he did not wave his hand to disperse the smoke and dust. As a result, the pervading smoke and dust landed on his entire face, his hair completely white, his face also covered by a layer of white ash, looking extremely comical. The martial practitioners under Zhao Yuan and Zhao Sheng, unable to stand his earlier arrogance, now seeing his misfortune, couldn't help but laugh out loud. Zhao Hao's entire face was white, but his eyes were like those of a wolf's as he stared at Yen Zhaoge. At this moment, within his gaze, there was no contempt or disdain, but instead hatred and enmity. It was no longer hatred and enmity towards Broad Creed Mountain, but was completely directed at Yen Zhaoge himself, directed at this youth whom he had never placed in his eyes before. Yen Zhaoge's expression was as per usual, not even glancing at Zhao Hao, instead cupping his hands towards Zhao Shirlai. Thanks to Prince Jin's suggestion, this was indeed an exciting competition. Seeing Yen Zhaoge completely ignoring his existence, Zhao Hao's pupils dilated slightly. Sometimes, ignoring was even worse than looking down on someone. Zhao Hao had always been someone who was arrogant, but he was even more arrogant. At this moment, how could he stand being ignored by Yen Zhaoge? His gaze instantly became even more serene. Does 16th brother want to experiment a few more times? Zhao Yuan's seemingly kind voice now resounded by his ear. Zhao Hao closed his eyes, clenching his fists tightly, his nails digging into the flesh of his palms. Having only experimented once just now, he already knew that the golden needle liberating pill technique was not something that could be learnt just by observing from the sidelines. Even with his alchemy skills that far surpassed most people in this world, it was also not something that could be grasped with just a few experiments. Looking at Zhao Hao, Zhao Yuan said mildly, "Looks like 16th brother does not intend to continue experimenting? Then, I wonder what the result of our competition will be." Zhao Hao's body swayed as he opened his eyes, not even looking at Zhao Yuan at all as he stared fixedly at Yen Zhaoge, hunting geese all year round, but having one's eyes pecked by a house sparrow. Sucking in a deep breath, he said, "This time, it's my loss." Zhao Hao glanced coldly at Zhao Yuan, too lazy to say anything more. He was 100% sure that Zhao Yuan would be able to refine his own healing pill, not to mention competing with him. Zhao Yuan's healing pill wouldn't even be worthy of carrying Zhao Hao's shoes. However, he had been full of himself earlier. If Zhao Yuan could do it, and he, Zhao Hao, couldn't do better, then it would be considered his loss. The result was that Zhao Yuan could do it, but he couldn't, although that definitely could not be the true abilities of that rookie Zhao Yuan. It was definitely Yen Zhaoge's guidance via sound transmission. Zhao Hao snorted and said, "The person I killed earlier didn't have any valuable testimony. There's just one thing. Their organization's influence is very wide, not just in the Eastern Tang, not just in the East Heaven region. At least they still have a stronghold in the North Heaven continent, but he doesn't know the specific situation." Listening by the side, Yen Zhaoge committed it to memory. However, his gaze still fell on Zhao Shirlai. Zhao Shirlai waved his hand and put away the radiant sun wheel. The light disappeared, and Zhao Shirlai's eyes dimmed. "Returning to the Eastern Tang capital, I will still have to trouble your highness, Prince Jin." Yen Zhaoge smiled very peacefully. Zhao Shirlai looked at Zhao Hao, then at Zhao Yuan, then at Yen Zhaoge. His expression changed a few times before he forced out a smile. Zhaoga coming to visit, this prince naturally welcomes you. Looking at Zhao Yuan, he said in a heavy tone, Royal nephew Yuan actually knows an ancient alchemy technique from before the Great Calamity. This is truly worthy of celebration. I wonder when it can be popularized. This kind of technique is sufficient to allow the production of pills in the Eastern Tang to rise to a whole new level. Zhao Yuan cupped his hands in greeting. What Royal Uncle Jean says is right. This nephew only has a rough understanding of it, and is currently still in the process of figuring it out. I want to at least have a preliminary plan before reporting it to Royal Father. Returning to the capital this time, I naturally have to report it to Royal Father. Perhaps the Pill Pavilion will first experiment with popularizing it. In any case, everything will be decided by Royal Father. Hearing his words, Zhao Shirye's eyebrows instantly jumped, almost unable to suppress the rage in his heart. The Pill Pavilion's momentum had originally already risen a step further due to the smoke cloud powder. Now, it was obviously going to rise to a whole new level. Following its development, it could be foreseen that the Pill Pavilion would soon surpass the others, becoming one of the pillars of the Eastern Tang Kingdom. But now, it no longer had anything to do with him. Zhao Shirlai sighed. He had still unconsciously underestimated Yen Zhaoga. He was a martial grandmaster, and his own son was even older than Yen Zhaoga. Although Yen Zhaoga had been in the limelight recently, letting everyone see his powerful strength and potential in the martial Dao. But Zhao Shirlai really had not thought that Yen Zhaoga would also be able to suppress Zhao Hao in the field of alchemy. As old Mr. Wang had said, Zhao Hao's level of alchemy could be considered one of the top few in the entire world. The level of alchemy was related to the martial practitioner's cultivation base, but it was not as closely related as the forging of artifacts. To a certain extent, it was a whole other system of knowledge. Wanting to be proficient in it, not only talent was needed, it also required the accumulation of time and energy. As Zhao Shirlai saw it, with Yen Zhaoga having such high attainments in the martial Dao, he naturally needed to be completely focused on his cultivation, which had already taken up a large amount of time and energy. Even if his talent in alchemy was not bad, where would he find the time to invest in it? If he had only coincidentally learnt an ancient secret technique, it would still be fine. But if Yen Zhaoga really had high attainments in the field of alchemy, that would be terrifying to the point that it was inconceivable. Zhao Shirlai could also be considered a person who had seen his fair share of storms and waves, but at this moment, he still felt as if his worldview and common sense had collapsed. His expression changed continuously, finally turning into a bitter smile. At this moment, Zhao Yuan also secretly sent over a sound transmission. This time, it was really all thanks to you, Zhaoga. Before this, I had not thought that this 16th brother of mine had concealed himself so deeply. Today's favor, I will definitely repay you generously. When Royal Father asks about the Golden Needle liberating pill later, I will also need your opinion. Yen Zhaoga replied, At that time, I will naturally discuss it with Uncle. You can rest easy. This technique, under the condition that the number of people in the know is limited, can only be used by the Pill Pavilion. I understand. Zhao Yuan understood. Rest easy. I will naturally not let Broad Creed Mountain suffer a loss. Standing beside Yen Zhaoga, Feng, Yunsheng asked, It was you who helped that Eastern Tang first prince, right? Yen Zhaoga put on a very reserved look on his face. Hee, low-key, low-key. Good. Low-key, you're the most low-key. Feng Yunsheng could not help but laugh as she shook her head before asking curiously, But this kind of secret technique, your Broad Creed Mountain doesn't keep it? Spreading it to the Eastern Tang Kingdom, just like that. Even though I have also heard that your father and the king of the Eastern Tang Kingdom are bosom buddies. Yen Zhaoga glanced at her. You should have said our broad Creed Mountain instead. Actually, Feng Yinsheng had still not officially entered the clan yet. Now, it was only Yin Zhaoge who had agreed to speak up for her. Broad Creed Mountain's exact attitude towards her was still uncertain. However, hearing his words, Feng Yinsheng smiled brightly. You're right, it's my fault. It's our Broad Creed Mountain. And much more pleasing to the ears. Yin Zhaoge nodded satisfactorily before saying, Rest easy. I have already reported the golden needle liberating pill technique to my father. The clan also has a foundation of it. In the Eastern Tang, wanting to squeeze out the sacred Sun clan and infinite boundless mountain, we would naturally have to put in some capital. Even without today's matter, we would still have made arrangements in this regard. That's why I wanted to swallow up Zhao Shuya's share of the pill pavilion. Yin Zhaoge snapped his fingers. It's just that before this, I had never thought that it would be so simple and smooth. Chapter 56. White clouds drifted leisurely, and the blue sky remained the same. However, her snow-white robe was now covered in dust. It fell to the ground and became dim. There was a huge wound on his chest and abdomen, but no blood flowed out. Instead, it was jet black, like charcoal that had been burnt by raging flames. The girl's life force had been completely severed. On his deathbed, the scene from before replayed before his eyes, and his ears seemed to echo with that furious voice. They said you injured junior brother Lan. Why? What happened? That dog, Yin Zhaoge, has tried to harm me time and time again. Lan Wenyan is his lackey. I have already shown mercy by sparing his life. There must be some misunderstanding. Let's go back to the mountain and explain it to the elders in the sect. Returning to the mountain now would be equivalent to me walking right into a trap. Do you want me to die at the hands of that dog father and son, Yin Zhaoge? I'll ask you one last time. Are you coming with me, or are you going back to find Yin Zhaoge? Yijing, calm down. I've conversed with senior apprentice brother Yin several times, and he has no intention of targeting you. There must be some misunderstanding. If they are not on my side, then they are on Yin Zhaoge's side. Those who are on Yin Zhaoge's side are my enemies. Even now, the astonishment in Lin Yushao's eyes had not completely disappeared. No matter what, she had never imagined that the unexpected reunion after such a long time would have such an outcome. Lin Yushao's gaze gradually became lax, and an expression of relief appeared on her face. From the moment I followed senior apprentice brother Yen back to Broad Creed Mountain, perhaps today's result was already destined. This is my destiny, right? On this day, before the beauty could truly bloom, it withered away. Outside the Eastern Tang kingdoms, overlooking Abyss City, in the wilderness near the Sealing Dragon Abyss and the Luyao Mountains, an old man stood with his hands behind his back. Lin Yushao? The old man swiveled his head to look at the person behind him. This old man remembers. It's that female disciple who had a conflict with Yin Zhaoge, and Yi Jing. The old man was precisely Broad Creed Mountain's principal elder in the Eastern Tang Kingdom, Yen Su. The warrior behind him nodded. Not bad. He was also an outstanding young disciple. Unfortunately, when we found him, he was already dead. There was no way to save him. Can you tell who did it? I can't determine the target's exact location. I can only deduce that the other party has cultivated a martial art that contains an extremely strong fire force. Yen Su asked, did she come to the Eastern Tang to find Yin Zhaoge, or to find Yi Jing? That martial practitioner shook his head. This subordinate cannot be certain, but it is most likely for Yin Zhaoge. According to what this subordinate knows, on her way to the Eastern Tang, she already knew that Yi Jing had returned alive from the Sealing Dragon Abyss. Moreover, she had already followed Yin Zhaoge before. If she were wise, she would have kept her distance from that Yi Jing. Before this, it was unknown whether Yi Jing was dead or alive. so a bit of concern was nothing. But now, knowing that Yi Jing is not dead, and still coming to the Eastern Tang, it should be because of Yan Zhaoga. At this point, the warrior hesitated for a moment. Yansu asked calmly, "What?" That martial practitioner answered, "These are some unconfirmed rumors. I heard that after Yan Zhaoga came to the Eastern Tang, he became rather close to our clan's other female disciple, Sikong Qing. Is it possible that Lin Yushao feels threatened? After all, she and Yan Zhaoga are not married. Young people, it is normal for their hearts to change a little." Hearing this, Yan Su fell silent. After a while, he said, "Take this old man to see that female disciple's corpse." Looking at the wound on Lin Yushao's chest, Yan Su was silent for a long time. Suddenly, he extended his palm. His palm was purplish red, and as his aura qi rose, it seemed as though a clump of real purple flames had condensed. It was precisely Broad Creed Mountain's direct lineage martial art, one of the 8 extreme arts, the Tishita palm. Yan Su's face was expressionless as he pressed his palm against Lin Yushao's wound. The girl's corpse shook slightly, a purple light flashing on its surface. Yan Su retracted his palm, turning to look at that martial practitioner. Yan Zhaoga also cultivated in the Tishita palm. That martial practitioner's heart jumped as he lowered his head, saying, "When this subordinate found Lin Yushao, she was already dead. I don't know who did it, but Lin Yushao died under our clan's Tishita palm. The scope of the culprit should be limited. This subordinate will go investigate right now." Yan Su nodded mildly. "Investigate carefully. While this Lin Yushao is still a white-clothed disciple, she is still a descendant of our clan. How can she die in such a shady manner? Other than that, search the area where this girl's corpse was found. Perhaps that Yi Jing's whereabouts will be found there. It's fine if you can't find him, but if you do, don't spread the news. Just bring him directly to see me. If there are any traces, clean them up on the spot. Don't leave any clues for others." His subordinate's heart moved slightly as he bowed, answering, "Yes." Within the Luliao Mountains, Yan Zhaoga's group set off on their return journey. As Yan Zhaoga walked, he pondered on the information he had obtained from Zhao Yuan, Zhao Hao, and the others. Not only is there a stronghold in the East Heaven region, there is also a stronghold in the North Heaven region. Yan Zhaoga calculated within his heart, doesn't that mean that other than the ghost hatchet elder Han Sheng, this power also has other martial grandmaster experts? If there is also a martial grandmaster like Han Sheng as their leader in the North Heaven region, is this power formed by Han Sheng and the others, or is there still a higher leader above them? Yan Zhaoga smacked his lips. They have people in the East Heaven region and the North Heaven region, but what about other places? Are there any outside of the Heaven domain? Yan Zhaoga's eyes narrowed slightly into slits. The East Heaven region has the sealing dragon abyss, and the North Heaven region has the vast dark river, both extending from hell, the ghost hatchet elder stirring up trouble, establishing a foothold in the sealing dragon abyss. If the others of this power make a move, they should also be related to hell. Yan Zhaoga's intuition told him that something was not right. In the post-Great Calamity 8 Extremities world, of the few major events that had the greatest influence and changed the structure of the world, the first to bear the brunt was the transformation of the Earth domain into hell, as well as the invasion of the Flame Devil world. It was also no wonder that as soon as hell was involved, it would touch on everyone's sensitive nerves. Still, it's still fine. After my secret activities have been exposed, it will be much easier to find more clues, as Yan Zhaoga thought. His gaze shifted to Zhao Hao amidst the crowd. How should I deal with him? And no matter what, I have to first let Uncle Zhao know. Yan Zhaoga curled his lips. Whether it was his father or his second apprentice uncle, neither of them would be happy to see a prince who held enmity towards Broad Creed Mountain become the Eastern Tang Crown Prince, and even the future king of the Eastern Tang Kingdom. As he pondered, a black-clothed martial practitioner approached, reporting, "Young master, there is an urgent message." Yan Zhaoge raised his brows. "What, you found Yi Jing?" The other party shook his head, saying softly, "There is news from overlooking Abyss City. Miss Lin Yuxiao, Lin, has been killed." Chapter 57. Yan Zhaoge had already known that Lin Yuxiao was coming to the Eastern Tang. Although Yan Zhaoge was a little troubled by this question left behind by the original owner of his body, he did not pay it too much mind. As for whether Lin Yuxiao had come because she had heard that Yi Jing had been lost within the sealing dragon abyss, or whether she had come for him, Yan Zhaoge was also not that important. However, Yan Zhaoge had never thought that Lin Yuxiao would actually be dead. Moreover, according to his subordinates, it wasn't an accident that killed him, but someone else. Yan Zhaoge stared blankly for quite a while before he regained his wits. It wasn't Xiao Shun or Chao Yuanlong. This was Yan Zhaoge's first reaction upon hearing the news. However, since the black-clothed martial practitioner had not immediately mentioned the Sacred Sun clan in his report, that should not be the case. "Did you encounter a perverted criminal?" Although it was a little absurd, other than Xiao Shun and the others, this was indeed the only possibility that Yan Zhaoge could think of. As far as he knew, Lin Yuxiao didn't have any enemies. At least, she didn't have any life or death grudges. Even if others vented their anger on them because of Yan Zhaoge, other than the Sacred Sun clan, there was no especially great enmity between them. Overlooking Abyss City and the Dragon Sealing Abyss, on the other hand, were often visited by all kinds of adventurers. Among them, there was no lack of bold, ruthless, and unscrupulous individuals. While Lin Yuxiao was a disciple of Broad Creed Mountain, it was still possible that she might encounter those kind of villains who would live each day to their heart's content. At times like this, he could only rely on his own abilities. The black-clothed man shook his head and said softly, "It is said that only Miss Lin's body was found. The murderer cannot be determined. Miss Lin's clothes are neat and tidy. It doesn't seem like she was violated." Yan Zhaoge raised his head slightly, his brows gradually knit as several thoughts surfaced within his mind. Although he had a rather deep entanglement with the original owner of his body, Yan Zhaoge had not even met that Miss Lin after transmigrating to this era. Although he didn't feel sad when he heard about the other party's death, he still felt that it was a pity. After all, a young life had withered just like that. After a while, Yan Zhaoge let out a long breath. "Let's talk about it after we return." The group continued to move forward and finally gradually left the Luliao mountain range. Arriving at the border region of the mountain range, on the way to overlooking Abyss City, they saw Broad Creed mountain martial practitioners heading their way. Seeing Yan Zhaoge, the leading martial scholar's expression changed slightly. Junior apprentice nephew, Yan Zhaoge recognized him as one of Su Chuan's subordinates as he nodded. "Do you have any instructions for me?" The other party lowered his voice and said, "Elder Su, please don't enter the city yet. We'll meet at an ancient pavilion 10 miles away from the city." Yan Zhaoge said calmly, "There's no need to be like this. Invite Elder Su over for a chat. We can talk on the way. I'm in a hurry to get to the capital of the Eastern Tang." The middle-aged martial artist hesitated for a moment before nodding and leaving. Gazing into the distance, Yan Zhaoge saw that in the distance there were also people currently observing them. Seeing them emerge from the Luliao Mountains, they immediately turned and left. It was obvious that he was informing the other party. Yan Zhaoge did not stop him, continuing on his way. Zhao Shilai, Zhao Yuan, and the rest who had come along also gradually began to feel that something was wrong. They were, after all, the Eastern Tang imperial family, and there were very few things that could escape their notice. They sent someone to inquire about it, and soon they received the news. For a moment, everyone had different expressions. Zhao Shilai looked calm, but he kept stroking his beard. Zhao Sheng looked like he was watching a good show, while Zhao Yuan looked worried. Zhao Hao, on the other hand, looked as if this matter had nothing to do with him, watching coldly from the sidelines. Very quickly, a deeply worried Su Chuan personally came out of overlooking Abyss City, meeting Yan Zhaoge and the others on the way. Junior apprentice nephew, Yan has returned. There's also Prince Jean, eldest prince, third prince, and 16th prince. It's been a long time. Su Chuan first greeted them seriously, but very quickly used his aura chi to bind his voice and send it into Yan Zhaoge's ears. Young Master Yan, junior apprentice niece Lin Yuxiao has been harmed. Do you know about it? Yan Zhaoge's gaze was calm, but his face intentionally carried some sorrow as he slowly nodded. I've heard about it, but I don't know who did it. Su Chuan's face was a little bitter. There's news that it was you, young master, Yan. Yan Zhaoge's brows instantly knit together. How is that possible? Who's spouting nonsense? There's a rumor that after junior apprentice niece Lin has been in seclusion for a long time, your feelings for her have faded. Su Chuan gnashed his teeth. The rumor was naturally even more unbearable, saying that Yan Zhaoge had already grown tired of playing with Lin Yuxiao. He naturally didn't dare to directly repeat these words to Yan Zhaoge. It's said that in coming to the Eastern Tang this time, young master Yan has taken a liking to junior apprentice niece Sicom. Hearing his words, Yan Zhaoge didn't know whether to be angry or to laugh. Did I just leave such an impression? From the corner of his eye, Su Chuan glanced behind Yan Zhaoge at Feng Yinsheng, who was currently playing with the little black dog. Yan Zhaoge immediately put his hand to his forehead, not daring to continue provoking him. Su Chuan dryly continued. It's said that after junior apprentice niece Lin left seclusion, upon hearing about you and junior apprentice niece Sicom, fearing that she would fall out of favor, she chased after you all the way to the Eastern Tang. After the two of you met, you got into an argument, and being pestered by junior apprentice niece Lin to the point of annoyance. In the end, Su Chuan couldn't continue because the face of Yan Zhaoge in front of him had already turned as black as the bottom of a pot. Yan Zhaoge said exasperatedly, "This kind of baseless rumor, there's actually someone who believes it." Su Chuan laughed bitterly. It's just that, according to the rumor, junior apprentice niece Lin died under the Tishita palm. Yan Zhaoge's pupils abruptly dilated. Tishita palm? Su Chuan nodded heavily. The corpse was first discovered by the subordinates of the Eastern Tang's principal elder, Yen Su. The corpse is also currently being watched over by them, and within a short period of time, it would be difficult to get close and examine it. However, it's said that a massive wound was torn open on her chest, her flesh and blood all burnt. At the very least, it was undoubtedly caused by a martial technique that contained the chi of fire. But now, the news is spreading that junior apprentice niece Lin died under the Tishita palm. He looked at Yan Zhaoge a little worriedly. It was naturally impossible that Yan Zhaoge was the only broad creed mountain martial practitioner who knew the Tishita palm. In the Eastern Tang, he was not the only one. However, the only one who had the motive was Yan Zhaoge alone, although that motive was a little nonsensical. However, the somewhat painful truth was that this kind of news of a love murder was the easiest to spread. Under the public's criticism, Yan Zhaoge's image would inevitably be a little ugly. If it was just gossip, then so be it. The public would still be very interested in stories of beauty's loving heroes. However, a love murder was a completely different matter altogether, especially this kind of news. Even if the truth was clarified afterwards, the public might not necessarily believe it. Yan Zhaoge narrowed his eyes slightly. The intention of the person spreading the rumor was probably not just as simple as ruining someone's reputation. Yan Zhaoge vaguely felt that this seemed to be some kind of foreshadowing. After pondering for a moment, Yan Zhaoge shook his head. It indeed has nothing to do with me. The truth behind junior apprentice sister Lin's death naturally has to be investigated in detail. However, at this moment, I still have urgent matters to attend to in the Eastern Tang capital. This matter concerns the foundation of my Broad Creed Mountain. I am also saddened by junior apprentice sister Lin's death, but now I can only prioritize public matters before private matters. The East Elder is also on his way to the capital of the Eastern Tang Kingdom. I will meet up with him there. Su Chuan stared blankly for a moment. He had originally thought that Yan Zhaoge was only intending to avoid the matter. However, since even the East Elder was coming over, it seemed like something big really had happened. Elder Yan is in overlooking Abyss City. He has ordered that as soon as he sees you, you are to go see him. Junior apprentice niece Lin's corpse is also in the city. Su Chuan hesitated for a moment before saying in a small voice. Yan Zhaoge curled his lips. Old people tend to forget things. He forgot that I am currently not under his control. Chapter 58. Just like how Yan Su knew that Yan Zhaoge cultivated in the Tishita Palm, Yan Zhaoge similarly knew that this principal elder of the Eastern Tang also cultivated in this martial art. It was just that Yan Zhaoge felt that this old man should not be deranged to the point of personally killing Lin Yuxiao, just to screw him over. However, even if it was not Yan Su who killed Lin Yuxiao, this matter of framing and spreading of rumors could not have been without his shadow behind it. Lin Yuxiao's corpse had been discovered by Yan Su's subordinates, and now that they were watching over it, it would be extremely easy for them to do anything to it. If it was not Yan Su and the others who killed Lin Yuxiao, then who could it be? Unexpectedly, a person suddenly flashed through Yan Zhaoge's mind. That shouldn't be the case. Yan Zhaoge narrowed his eyes slightly, his gaze turning cold. I still said that I'd give you a good beating before handing you over to the clan, but if you really are deranged to such an extent, I'll save myself some trouble and directly send you off into the cycle of reincarnation. Very quickly, Ahu returned. Upon seeing him, Yan Zhaoge immediately asked, "Did you find that kid, Yicheng?" Ahu rubbed his hands rather embarrassedly. "Young master, I tried my best. I chased each of the underground rivers in the vicinity for hundreds, even thousands of li. That kid did not leave the river water at all, just being swept along by it. By the time I found any traces of him, too much time had already passed. He should have already left the Luliao Mountains. This way, with the vastness of the heavens and the vastness of the earth, it would be hard for me to find him." Yan Zhaoge did not blame Ahu, instead waving his hands dismissively. "If you didn't find him, then you didn't find him." That icy cold pond collapsed, and the underground rivers spread out in all directions. It's not your fault. But don't stop, continue searching. Hearing the news and the rumors about Lin Yuxiao, Ahu smacked his lips. After all, they had known each other for a while, but he still felt a little bad. Who would do such a thing to Miss Lin? As the two walked, they returned to the vicinity of the crowd. Ahu looked curiously at Feng Yunsheng. She waved at him generously, and Ahu was stunned for a moment before he also waved back. Ahu turned back to look at Yan Zhaoge, giving a simple smile, but speaking of young master and Miss Sikong being close. "Young master, you shouldn't have any thoughts, right? Before entering the Luliao Mountains, I didn't see you having any thoughts about Sikong. But then again, Miss Sikong is really quite beautiful. Young master, have you ever considered eating her?" Yan Zhaoge rolled his eyes at him exasperatedly. "Also, young master, where did you kidnap such a beautiful girl?" Ahu sneaked up to Yan Zhaoge, glancing at Feng Yunsheng from the corner of his eye as he asked in a low voice, "Did you eat this?" Yan Zhaoge rolled his eyes, reaching out and giving Ahu a smack on the back of his head. Feng Yunsheng, who was holding her little black dog, Little Meaty, turned around with a serious look on her face. "I haven't been eaten by him yet. I'm still a virgin." Cough, cough. Having just been struck by Yan Zhaoge, Ahu, who had yet to recover, instantly choked on his own saliva as he began coughing madly. The corners of Yen Zhaoga's mouth twitched twice. A virgin discussing this with a man in such a calm and composed manner. Feng Yunsheng stroked little Meaty's fur and said nonchalantly, "What else? Being teased by a man to the point where your face turns red and your heart palpitates, taking an inch and wanting a mile, in the end either turning tail and running away, or raising your blade to chop people up, or pretending not to have heard it, turning a deaf ear to it, allowing others to judge and comment on it as they pleased." Yen Zhaoga looked at her. Feng Yunsheng nodded. "In these 2 years since leaving the clan, I've been to many places, seen many people, and seen many things. Hiding in the wilderness, hiding in the city. In order to avoid being caught by Xiao Shen and the others, I've stayed in the deep mountains and ancient forests before. Hiding in the marketplace is also a common thing." Yen Zhaoga shook his head as he laughed. Ahu looked at Feng Yunsheng, chuckling as he gave her a big thumbs up. Feng Yunsheng smiled, also giving Ahu a big thumbs up. "As for where I was kidnapped by your young master, that's a moving story of a hero saving a damsel in distress. Young Master Yen displayed his invincible might, brutally beating up 2 of the Sacred Sun clan's 4 rising sons, saving a weak little girl like me." Ahu was taken aback as he swiveled his head to look at Yen Zhaoga. "2 other than Chao Yuanlong. There's also Xiao Shen," Yen Zhaoga said nonchalantly. "You can ask them for the specifics." Having finished listening to Yen Zhaoga's exchange with Chao Yuanlong and Xiao Shen, as well as Yen Zhaoga's breakthrough to the mid-outer Aura Martial Scholar stage, Ahu looked at Yen Zhaoga with a face full of worship. "Young master, you're really too awesome. Stop flattering me. If you want to flatter me, make your expression a little more sincere first. Don't be so fake." As they conversed, they headed towards the Eastern Tang capital. However, halfway there, someone suddenly chased after them from behind. It was the Eastern Tang's principal elder, Yen Su. Naturally, it wasn't because Yen Zhaoga had given him face that he had chased after him to settle scores. Rather, it was because he had also received a message from the East Elder to meet up in the Eastern Tang capital. Yen Su looked at Yen Zhaoga and asked, "For what matter has the East Elder come to the Eastern Tang?" Yen Zhaoga smiled mildly. "Why has Elder Yen come to ask me? I'm also rushing to the Eastern Tang capital to meet up with the East Elder." Yen Su's gaze turned cold as he appraised Yen Zhaoga. "The Sacred Sun clan has been restless and uneasy these past few days. I'm afraid that it has something to do with this matter. There's news. Even the Sacred Sun clan's headquarters seems to have been alerted. This time, what exactly did you do?" Facing Yen Su's cold gaze, Yen Zhaoga seemed to be completely unaware of it. "The East Elder must have also given you instructions, Elder Yen. He must have his own considerations. If I were to say too much, it would not be good." The meaning of his words was, "What you should know, the East Elder had naturally already told you. What you shouldn't know, don't come here to ask about. I have no need to report it to you." Yen Su looked indifferently at Yen Zhaoga, slowly nodding, "Very good." Previously, the East Elder had only instructed him to enforce martial law, to guard against the people of the Sacred Sun clan, and also to ensure the safety of Yen Zhaoga's group. As for everything else, it would be discussed after arriving at the Eastern Tang capital together with Yen Zhaoga. In particular, it had been mentioned to ensure the safety of Yen Zhaoga's group. Thinking of this, Yen Su's gaze fell on Feng Yunsheng. Before and after Yen Zhaoga had entered the Luliao Mountains, the only one who had changed by his side was her. "After the matter with the East Elder has concluded, you will also have to explain some other matters," Yen Su said at the end. Yen Zhaoga's expression did not change. "I will have to trouble Elder Yen." As they arrived at the Eastern Tang capital of Jingyang, Broad Creed Mountain's East Elder in charge of the East Heaven region had already arrived. At this moment, the East Elder was waiting for Yen Zhaoge and the others in the courtyard where Yen Su had originally been stationed. This was a tall, muscular, silver-haired old man, his spirit hale and hearty, not giving off the feeling of being old at all. The East Continent Elder's eyes shone brightly. His gaze fell on Feng Yunsheng as soon as the crowd entered. After carefully appraising Feng Yunsheng for a moment, his gaze once more fell on Yen Zhaoge and Yen Su. "Zhaoge, tell us in detail what happened." The East Elder said, "The clan has also been greatly shaken. They want to send people over." Hearing this, Yen Su's gaze flickered slightly. Even the East Elder was unable to make the decision, and the clan had to be alerted. Chapter 59. Yen Zhaoge's expression was as per usual, as after greeting the East Elder, he looked at Feng Yunsheng behind him. "Elder, this is the person I mentioned to you before. Her original name was Feng Muge. Her current name is Feng Yunsheng." The Eastern Continent Elder nodded slightly when he heard the three words, Feng Muge. With his rank, he knew many things. Yen Zhaoge then introduced them to Feng Yunsheng, Junior Apprentice Sister Feng. "This is our clan's East Heaven region, first seat Elder Qin." Feng Yunsheng respectfully bowed. Her etiquette was flawless. Junior Feng Yunsheng greets Senior. Feng Yunsheng was very clear about the difference between being carefree and being rude on different occasions. With her background and knowledge, she naturally knew that this tall old man before her was Broad Creed Mountain's guardian, first seat elder in the entire East Heaven region. In Broad Creed Mountain's internal rules and regulations, there were the first seat elder, principal elder, acting elder. Perhaps his cultivation and authority were somewhat lacking, but in terms of status, this Elder Qin was on the same level as Yen Zhaoge's father, Yen Di. It was just that their jurisdiction was different, one internal and one external. Theoretically, Elder Qin could deal with anything that happened in the East Continent. It was just that the matter regarding Feng Yunsheng this time had too many implications, so it was not good for Elder Qin to make a decision on his own. Broad Creed Mountain was already about to send people over, and Elder Qin, having specially come to the Eastern Tang at this time, was also to get a feel of things first. However, if he couldn't even get past Elder Qin, then there would be no future to speak of. Yen Zhaoge looked at Elder Qin. This old man was a long-time elder of the clan, of the same generation as the old clan chief. Between his father Yen Di and his second apprentice uncle, he had always been impartial. She didn't need to hope that he would take care of her, but she also didn't need to worry that he would be as mischievous as Yen Su. Everything was based on facts, with Broad Creed Mountain's overall interests being the most important. Elder Qin, as I first reported to you, this junior apprentice Sister Feng is a disciple of the Sacred Sun clan. Now, she has turned her back on us, wanting to join our Broad Creed Mountain. Yen Zhaoge said neither quickly nor slowly. Elder Qin listened quietly without saying a word. Yen Su also did not interrupt. It was impossible for Yen Zhaoge not to know what kind of influence Broad Creed Mountain would have by taking in a traitorous disciple of the Sacred Sun clan. Even so, he still brought Feng Yunsheng back, and Elder Qin did not object to it immediately. He even alerted the mountain gate, which meant that there was a special situation. Yen Zhaoge said calmly, "Elder should know of a piece of intelligence obtained from investigating the Sacred Sun clan's Maiden of Extreme Yin that year. It mentioned a name, Feng Muge. Because of Meng Wan's sudden appearance, that piece of information was thought to be false information, but that was not the case. Feng Muge really exists. She is the junior sister Feng, behind me." Other than Elder Qin and Yen Su, those present were all important figures of Broad Creed Mountain in the East Heaven region. Other than Elder Qin, who was already in the know, the eyes of Yen Su and the others immediately lit up when they heard the words Maiden of Extreme Yin. They had searched for many years in the 5 continents of the Heaven Domain, but they had never been able to find a maiden of extreme een. Broad Creed Mountain had even secretly sent people to other territories to search, hoping to pick up some leftovers. Still, they had come up empty-handed. In the extreme een bouts of the past 2 years, Broad Creed Mountain had only been able to watch from the sidelines, helplessly watching the other Sacred Grounds contest for the extreme een crown. They had naturally been filled with helplessness and frustration. If Feng Yunsheng really was a maiden of extreme een, even if they had to forcibly withstand the pressure of the Sacred Sun clan, Broad Creed Mountain would definitely have to keep her. Elder Qin nodded. Then he asked calmly, "In your previous message, you only said that this young friend Feng's lunar body was damaged. However, you did not say to what extent. Grooming a maiden of extreme een requires quite a lot of resources, but with the Sacred Sun Clan's foundation, even if they already have Mengwan, grooming 2 maidens of extreme een would still not be a problem. A maiden of extreme een roaming outside is definitely not a small matter. The Sacred Sun Clan would not be so negligent and careless. Unless young friend Feng's lunar body has been completely destroyed." Yan Zhaoga's tone did not fluctuate in the slightest as he answered truthfully, "Right now, that's right." Elder Qin knit his brows slightly as he looked at Yan Zhaoga and Feng Yunsheng. At this moment, Yan Su slowly opened his mouth. Even the Sacred Sun Clan would not be willing to use a maiden of extreme een as a spy. However, if it is an ordinary disciple whose lunar body has already been destroyed, it might not be impossible. Everyone present, whether they were on Yan Su's side or not, frowned as they heard his words, appraising Yan Zhaoga and Feng Yunsheng with scrutinizing gazes. Today's matter was indeed not a small matter. If Feng Yunsheng's lunar body was in perfect condition, without a doubt, Broad Creed Mountain would have immediately accepted her. Yan Zhaoga would have done a great service and not a mistake, and would have done a great service. But if Feng Yunsheng had lost her lunar body, whether or not Broad Creed Mountain still wanted to take her, it would have to be reconsidered. Taking in disciples of other sacred grounds who had betrayed their sect was a rather vile thing to do, especially with the Sacred Sun Clan and Broad Creed Mountain not being on good terms with each other in the first place. Such an action would very likely cause their enmity to rise a step further. The one who had caused all this, Yan Zhaoga, would have to bear the reputation of being frivolous and impetuous, causing trouble outside and causing unnecessary trouble for the clan. And if Feng Yunsheng was a spy sent over by the Sacred Sun Clan, if Broad Creed Mountain took her in, and if trouble arose in the future, Yan Zhaoga would be the main culprit. A huge mistake. Yan Zhaoga's expression did not change. Junior apprentice Sister Feng was bullied and humiliated by her fellow disciples of the Sacred Sun Clan, and the elders of the clan were also unable to uphold justice for her, even wanting to distort the truth and kill her. The only master who took care of her perished in a conflict with the Flame Devils over the East Sea not long ago. After hearing the news, having already been on the run for 2 years, she finally truly rebelled against the Sacred Sun Clan, even killing 3 of her fellow disciples. Yan Zhaoga looked at the crowd. The reason she fled the Sacred Sun Clan 2 years ago was also because she had heavily injured Xiao Shen. Since then, she has always been pursued by Xiao Shen and his men. Yan Su said indifferently, the Sacred Sun Clan might not be unwilling to part with the lives of those 3 young disciples if she is a dead woman. Yan Zhaoga laughed. That is not impossible, but I wonder if that grand elder of the Sacred Sun Clan would be willing to let that single descendant of his to become a eunuch henceforth. The great hall instantly fell silent. Yan Su was also a little taken aback. Frowning, Elder Qin asked, "You mean," Yan Zhaoga said in all seriousness, "that year Xiao Shen's lower body was injured by junior apprentice Sister Feng, and from a certain aspect, he is also crippled." Feng Yunsheng also had a serious look on her face as she bowed. Junior was anxious at the time and made a mistake. Although Xiaoshen deserved it, it was inevitable that he would be disgraced. Seniors, please do not take it to heart. Yan Zhaoge said, I protected her. The second time I clashed with Xiaoshen, I verified this point. Of course, it is also possible that Xiaoshen was crippled because of some other matter. Oh, that's not right. It should be because he was unable to have sex, and the Sacred Sun clan made use of trash, making use of it to make a fuss. Therefore, if junior apprentice Sister Feng enters our clan, in the future, some investigations will still not be spared. But on the whole, I believe that junior apprentice Sister Feng's words are trustworthy. The corners of Yen Su's mouth twitched as he snorted, no longer dwelling on the earlier question. Instead saying, her extreme physique is not crippled. Say that again. Chapter 60. This elder's gaze seemed to solidify as it rested on Feng Yunxing's wrist, as though he was diagnosing her pulse with his gaze. Feng Yunxing stood quietly where she was. After a moment, Elder Qin retracted his gaze. Her pulse was indeed that of an extreme physique, but it has already been completely dried up, only being slightly stronger than that of an ordinary person. Elder Qin looked at Yan Zhaoge, slowly shaking his head. Those of the Sacred Sun clan should have examined her many times before making their final decision. Yen Su and the others nodded. This was common sense within expectations. Elder Qin paused for a moment, his gaze on Feng Yunxing. Somewhat regretfully, her innate talent is indeed outstanding, but I wonder how are her comprehension and will. Yan Zhaoge laughed. If not for her accident that year, the Sacred Sun clan's #1 seed participating in the extreme bout would actually have been her. This is partly due to her having entered the clan earlier, but at least we know that she is definitely not inferior to Meng Wan. Not only was Meng Wan a maiden of extreme her talent in the martial Dao was also outstanding amongst the younger generation, definitely an elite amongst her peers, her name shaking the heavens. The momentum of her rise was so strong that it even vaguely showed signs of surpassing the 4 rising suns. Yan Zhaoge said, if junior apprentice Sister Feng had only heavily injured Xiaoshen somewhere else back then, instead of castrating him, perhaps she still wouldn't have needed to flee. Elder Qin nodded, falling into deep thought. If Feng Yunxing's talent was ordinary, there really wouldn't be a need for Broad Creed Mountain to take her in just to discuss the Sacred Sun clan. While the relationship between the two sides wasn't harmonious, it wasn't to the point where they wouldn't give in to each other over such a small matter. If it was the water domain's sacred ground, Jade Sea City, which was like fire and water with the Sacred Sun clan, it might still be possible. From a certain perspective, that was the best place for Feng Yunxing to go. It was just that the water domain was too far from the heaven and fire domains, and it would be extremely difficult for Feng Yunxing to escape their pursuit and reach the water domain alone. Therefore, Broad Creed Mountain had become the most suitable choice for her. If Yan Zhaoge hadn't kept her back then, nor had he captured her and handed her over to Xiaoshen, Feng Yunxing would have been prepared to take the risk and head to the water domain herself. And now, after Elder Qin's examination, he discovered that even though Feng Yunxing had lost her extreme physique, she herself was still a genius amongst geniuses, a monster worth grooming. This caused Elder Qin and Broad Creed Mountain to be a little conflicted. He had to weigh the rewards and the price he might have to pay. Yan Zhaoge smiled slightly. Actually, there is a way to recover junior apprentice Sister Feng's extreme physique. Elder Qin frowned, but did not say anything. Instead, he looked at Feng Yunxing again. This time, he directly raised his hand and pointed in the air. A ray of light flew out from his finger and landed on Feng Yunxing's wrist. After carefully inspecting Feng Yunxing's condition, once more, Elder Qin looked at Yan Zhaoge, asking in a heavy tone, on what basis do you say this? Yen Su also glanced at Feng Yunxing. His gaze was like a tangible object as it landed on Feng Yunxing's wrist. After a moment, Yen Su retracted his gaze and said indifferently, saying that it's damaged is a small matter. It's not just damaged, but completely destroyed. Making it recover is no different from bringing a dead person back to life. Furthermore, he didn't just die. He's been dead for 2 years. Yen Su looked at Yen Zhaoge. In recent days, you have indeed consecutively accomplished several major things that surpassed everyone's expectations. However, I wonder if you have the ability to revive the dead. Elder Qin did not speak, but he clearly agreed with Yen Su's words. He looked quietly at Yen Zhaoge, waiting for him to give him an explanation. Yen Zhaoge smiled. Elder Qin, you said just now that the extreme yin qi within Junior Apprentice Sister Feng's body is only slightly stronger than that of ordinary people. Elder Qin nodded. That's right, Yen Zhaoge said, leisurely. When I first saw her, she was actually no different from an ordinary person. Her extreme yin physique had completely dried up and died. Only seeing the remains, there was no longer any extreme yin qi left. Huh. Elder Qin's eyes abruptly widened. He looked at Feng Yunsheng somewhat disbelievingly. Feng Yunsheng now opened her mouth to say, These days, this junior has been traveling with senior apprentice brother, Yen, receiving his secret technique of piercing acupoints with golden needles. Within her dried-up meridians, there is indeed vaguely the rebirth of extreme yin qi. While it's extremely slow, it's already different from before. Yen Su and the others all looked at Yen Zhaoge, and Feng Yunsheng with some disbelief. Yen Zhaoge smiled. Our clan has never had a maiden of extreme yin, unable to find one no matter where we searched. These past few years, seeing other sacred grounds vying for the extreme yin crown, while our clan could only watch from the sidelines, I was also extremely anxious. Thus, I thought that since maidens of extreme yin are all born innately, could it be possible that an extreme yin physique can be created after birth? Thus, I gathered all the records and information, researching on this myself. Yen Zhaoge shook his head somewhat regretfully. Sadly, the extreme yin physique is blessed by the heavens and can only be created after birth. There is no hope of any progress or improvement. Yen Zhaoge swiveled his head to look at Feng Yunsheng. However, I also accumulated a lot of knowledge in this area. In the end, I discovered that while it cannot be created after birth if it is an innately born extreme yin physique, if it is damaged after birth, there is a possibility of recovery. I have to thank Junior Apprentice Sister Feng for trusting me, allowing me to experiment. After all, the method that I came up with was something that I had never been able to test before. Yen Su's face was expressionless as he looked coldly at Yen Zhaoge and Feng Yunsheng. A one-sided story. How can it be verified? Yen Zhaoge said, It hasn't been long since I first met Junior Apprentice Sister Feng until today. In a few more days, the extreme yin qi within Junior Apprentice Sister Feng's body will still grow stronger. That way, my words will be verified. Yen Su said indifferently, The people of the Sacred Sun clan were just sent back by this old man 2 days ago. Now that your people have already returned, they should be coming knocking again very soon. We have to make a decision as soon as possible. We don't have that much time to wait for you to verify it. Yen Zhaoge raised his brows slightly. Just as he was about to speak, Elder Qin raised his hand to stop him. The burly East Elder looked straight at Yen Zhaoge. I will first believe that your words are true. However, your method, to what extent can it help her recover? Is it just a portion, or can it be as good as before, or at least close to the level of her previous peak? Yen Zhaoge's expression grew a little more solemn as he said slowly, Recovery requires time, and some of the required resources and environmental conditions are still not complete. We still have to gather them in preparation. As for to what extent, Yen Zhaoga met Elder Qin's gaze calmly. Even stronger than she was back then. Yen Zhaoga suddenly laughed. If I can't do it, I'll enter the heaven ceiling, gorge myself. Elder Qin looked at Yen Zhaoga, his gaze calm. Yen Su frowned. Just as he was about to speak, someone came in from outside to report that the people of the Sacred Sun clan had come to denounce them. Elder Qin? Yen Su looked at Elder Qin. Chapter 61. Feng Yunsheng bowed to Elder Qin. Thank you, Senior. Elder Qin waved his hand and said, Little girl, your matter is very important. I can't make a decision on my own. You'll have to wait for the final decision from the Mountain Gate. Yes, this junior understands. Feng Yunsheng swiveled her head to look at Yen Zhaoga, saying in a low tone, Thank you. Even she, a former disciple of the Sacred Sun clan, had heard of the Heaven Ceiling Gorge. That was the place where Broad Creed Mountain imprisoned and punished serious criminals. Only those who were extremely evil and could not be put to death for the time being, or those of Broad Creed Mountain who had committed extremely great crimes, would be imprisoned in the Heaven Ceiling Gorge. It was rumored that there was no daylight there, and the environment there was even worse than the Dragon Ceiling Abyss. Ever since the founding of Broad Creed Mountain, there had never been anyone who had been imprisoned within the Heaven Ceiling Gorge who had been able to escape on their own. Yen Zhaoga looked at her nonchalantly. I have confidence in myself. Feng Yunsheng replied snappily, Yes, I don't have enough confidence in you. It's my fault. I'll pay attention next time. Next time, I'll say, Good job. I knew you were reliable. Yen Zhaoga chuckled, Low-key, low-key. At this moment, outside the mansion, a golden light descended like the sun and hung on the street. It caused the surrounding heaven and earth to become unbearably hot, and the pedestrians all retreated. Those with some knowledge would all know that this was the Sacred Sun clan's principal elder in the eastern Tang kingdom. And now, he was like an army approaching the city gates, his target being the office of the Tang Empire's principal elder in Broad Creed Mountain. Clearly, a dispute had arisen between the two sacred grounds once again. In the Eastern Tang, this sort of thing was not rare, but it was mostly done in secret. But now, a principal elder of one side had come to visit them in an overbearing manner. The competition between the two sides has escalated. Don't tell me they're going to start fighting in Jingyang City? Just the aftermath of a fight between two great grandmasters is enough to flatten the surroundings. Many people were worried. An irascible voice rang out from within the huge golden sun. Yen Su, I know that kid surnamed Yen has returned. He covered up for our Glory Sect's defected disciple, and even injured our Glory Sect's disciple who was in charge of tracking him down. If your Broad Creed Mountain doesn't know how to teach disciples, then let me help you. Hand over Yen Zhaoga and that slut immediately, or I'll tear this place apart. Yen Su's calm voice resounded within the mansion. This old man doesn't need to tell you where my clan's disciples are. If your Sacred Sun clan lost their disciples, go look for them yourselves. What does that have to do with my clan? The person you want isn't here. If you want to pin a crime on someone, you can always find a pretext. If you want to cause trouble, I'll accompany you. Within the golden sun, a figure gradually appeared. It was an elder with a square face and big ears, dressed in a golden robe. Staring at the mansion below, he laughed savagely, injuring a member of my Sacred Sun clan, harboring a traitor of my Sacred Sun clan. Your Broad Creed Mountain really has some guts now. Looks like you have forgotten that if not for my Sacred Sun clan showing mercy back then, your Broad Creed Mountain would have long since been exterminated. Within the great hall, hearing his words, Yen Zhaoga chortled, not afraid of twisting your tongue when the wind is strong. The first invasion of the Flame Devil world had been repelled, the exalted heaven shaker Zhandonga had perished, and Broad Creed Mountain had suffered the most grievous losses of all the sacred grounds, thus giving the Sacred Sun clan and the other sacred grounds a chance to catch up. Some people respected Jandonga and Broad Creed Mountain's contributions, but there were also others who wanted to make use of this chance to push down a fallen wall. Fortunately, Broad Creed Mountain had many capable people at that time, and a person who had always been willing to assist Jandonga wholeheartedly, whose brilliance had been overshadowed by Jandonga, had stepped forward. This person was the heaven diviner Jean Shilo, the blood brother of the exalted heaven shaker Jandonga, and also Jandonga's successor as Broad Creed Mountain's chief. After Jandonga had perished, Jean Shilo, who had assumed the position of chief, had stood alone, displaying shocking brilliance. It was precisely because of Jean Shilo's sudden emergence that Broad Creed Mountain had been able to stand tall after the first invasion of the Flame Devils, with the entire clan having suffered great losses to its vitality. That Broad Creed Mountain had been able to survive through its most difficult times. Jandonga and Jean Shilo had also become the most famous and legendary pair of blood brothers of the Eight Extremities world after the Great Calamity. Under the leadership of that Grand Master, who was known by the populace as the Sacred Sun Saint, the Sacred Sun clan had risen mightily after the invasion of the Flame Devils, clashing repeatedly with Jean Shilo and Broad Creed Mountain. Under Jean Shilo's leadership, Broad Creed Mountain had concealed its strength and bided its time, adopting a conservative stance as it silently amassed its strength once more. However, it knew when to advance and when to retreat, never allowing the Sacred Sun clan to truly gain much of an advantage. Afterwards, the Sacred Sun Saint had abdicated, passing the position of chief to a successor, and there had been no news of him himself. Jean Shilo had perished in yet another great battle with the Flame Devils, spilling his last drop of blood for the Eight Extremities world, just like his elder brother. However, through Jean Shilo's efforts, Broad Creed Mountain had gradually stabilized its footing once more, no longer in a precarious state like before. It was only that during this period of time, the Sacred Sun clan had unceasingly expanded and developed, finally surpassing Broad Creed Mountain, becoming the new #1 sacred ground. Yen Zhaoga shrugged his shoulders. If that Sacred Sun Saint of his is still around, please show yourself. Now that the attacks of the Flame Devils are getting fiercer and fiercer, the Eight Extremities world just happens to be in need of such an expert. Yen Su's figure appeared in the air above the mansion, staring at the same level as that golden-robed Sacred Sun clan elder. Exterminate my Broad Creed Mountain? If you can do it, then come and try. The golden-robed elder laughed coldly. If not for the Sacred Sun clan not allowing it, I would have long since taken care of you. Today, I will exterminate you first. As his aura chi surged, he was once again enveloped by the golden light. Unlike the seemingly illusory sunlight of Shaoshun and Chao Yuanlong, it had truly transformed into the sun, its radiance shining brightly. All the water in the surrounding heavens and earth was completely evaporated, the ground of the streets beginning to crack, the grass and trees all charred black and withered. Under the high temperature, even the surrounding space itself distorted. Yen Su's expression was indifferent, his gaze solemn as he pushed his palms forward. With his martial grandmaster cultivation fully displayed, the Tushita palm currently executed by Yen Su was naturally different. Purple flames instantly appeared, transforming into an actual sea of flames, clashing with the great golden sun. The purple flames of Tushita and the golden sunlight intertwined in the sky, the surrounding temperature instantly rising once more. Some of the dry and flammable objects in the surrounding environment began to spontaneously combust, as if the heavens and earth within a radius of 100 li were about to turn into a world of flames. As the capital of the Eastern Tang Kingdom, the city gates of Jingyang City shook, numerous spirit patterns appearing on the ground. The air became slightly cooler, and both Yen Su and the golden-robed elder could feel an oppressive feeling assaulting them. The two of them did not stop only allowing Jingyang City's grand formation to suppress the area of effect of their battle. In the sky, the purple flames of Tushita and the golden sunlight were destroyed and roiled unceasingly, their battle turning the heavens and the earth upside down. The sun that the golden-robed elder had transformed into was like the midday sun. Suddenly, the sun gradually shrank, and the golden-robed elder's figure reappeared. That sun appeared in his palm, unprecedentedly condensed and dazzling. The golden-robed elder raised his hand as if he was holding up the sun and then slammed it down with his palm. Yen Su's two palms clasped together, and following the changes in his palms, the purple flames of Tushita in the surrounding air also condensed. The leaping flames compressed and condensed into a solid form, actually transforming into a huge purple pill furnace. Chapter 62. As the two martial Grandmaster-level experts fought, the weather in the surroundings changed, affecting everything within 50 kilometers. Fortunately, Jingyang City had its own array formation that confined the storm they had stirred up within a limited space. But in this space, the battle had already turned heaven and earth upside down. Is Broad Creed Mountain determined to go against my Sacred Sun clan? At this moment, a grand voice sounded in the sky above Jingyang City. In the next moment, an even bigger golden sun appeared in the sky. When this sun appeared, the sun formed by the golden-robed old man immediately dimmed. The purple flames formed by Yen Su's Tushita palm were about to be extinguished in an instant. Yen Su let out a muffled groan. In the blink of an eye, the pill furnace formed from the purple Tushita flames was covered in cracks and then shattered. The pill furnace shattered and turned into flowing flames. It jumped a few times in the air and was about to be extinguished. That second sun hung high up in the sky, actually competing with the real sun in terms of brightness. For a moment, it was as if two suns were shining together in the sky, illuminating the capital of the Eastern Tang Kingdom, Jingyang City. At this moment, Jingyang City's grand array was no longer as relaxed as it had been against Yen Su and the golden-robed elder. Spirit runes lit up one after another in the void, distorting as they couldn't bear the heavy burden. In the mansion above ground, Elder Qin sat on a chair. His eyebrows gradually rose. Show off your might. You have come to the wrong place. Suddenly, a majestic saber chi soared into the sky from the courtyard. Wherever the saber chi passed, the scorching heat from the two suns immediately decreased, and the entire world became cool. After the coolness, there was a deep chill. At this moment, Elder Qin's figure appeared above the mansion, glaring at the sun. He let out a low roar, and the wind and clouds surged. The space between heaven and earth distorted, as if an invisible giant blade had appeared, tearing a crack in the void in front of him. The cracks extended towards the second great sun, wishing to cut it apart as well. 8 extremities of the exalted 8 extremities. Divine blade of transmutation, unity. A grand voice resounded from within the golden sun. In the next instant, the golden sun didn't retreat. Instead, it advanced and smashed towards Elder Qin. It was as if the sun was tilting to the west. Endless rays of light fell to the ground, about to incinerate the world. It was one of the great Sun 7 arts, the west-tilting, heaven-burning blade. A huge divine talisman suddenly lit up on the golden saber light that resembled the setting sun. It was vast and complicated, as if it was going to envelop the entire Jingyang City. A huge divine talisman lit up on Elder Qin's chaotic elements, uniting energy divine saber, which had turned into an invisible blade that could split the heavens and split the earth. The power of both sides rose to a whole new level as they collided, causing Jingyang City to feel as if it was about to shatter. At this moment, the voice of the king of the Eastern Tang Kingdom resounded from within Jingyang City. If the two of you wish to fight, Choose another place. Do you wish to tear apart my Eastern Tang's capital? Jingyang City's grand array suddenly lit up, and the interweaving spirit patterns became clearer and more condensed. The formation began to operate at full power, and its power rose steadily. Elder Qin stopped his saber chi, snorting, "If someone wants to make trouble out of nothing, this old man will accompany him to the end. Do you think that my broad Creed Mountain is easy to bully?" Hovering within the sky, a voice resounded from within. "Zhao Shicheng, you want to interfere in the matters of my sacred Sun clan and broad Creed Mountain?" The king of the Eastern Tang Kingdom, Zhao Shicheng's calm voice resounded from within Jingyang City's grand formation. The East Rising Lord's words are too serious. It is naturally not good for my Eastern Tang to get involved in a matter between the two sacred grounds. However, if you make a move in Jingyang City, this king will not be able to sit by idly. Within the house, Yen Zhaoge stroked his lower chin. So it's one of the 7 reigning sons, the East Rising Lord. However, I remember that the East Rising Lord changed just a few years ago. In the years when the Sacred Sun clan had risen to prominence, there had been 7 outstanding experts who were collectively known as the 7 reigning sons. Their names were the same as the 7 reigning sons, namely Daybreak, East Rising, Middle Heaven, World Illuminating, West Tilting, Sunset, and Twilight. Afterwards, the 7 reigning sons had become a fixed pattern. Some of them had perished or retired, while others had taken over and succeeded them. Swiveling his head to look, Yen Zhaoge saw that Feng Yunxing had a rather strange expression on her face. Seeing Yen Zhaoge look at her, Feng Yunxing shook her head. "My Grand Master was the previous East Rising Lord. After Grand Master perished, the current East Rising Lord's successor was the one outside. Of the current 7 reigning sons, he is the youngest and also the most inexperienced. However, his cultivation base and skills are also universally shocking." The sun in the sky gradually disappeared, a golden-robed, middle-aged man appearing. It was precisely the current East Rising Lord. Staring at Elder Qin, the East Rising Lord then swept his gaze across Jingyang City down below, saying slowly, "Someone has taken in a traitorous disciple of my Sacred Sun clan. I naturally have to get involved. Hand him over, apologize, and atone for his crimes. Otherwise, we fight." Elder Qin's tall frame towered within the sky, his expression not changing in the slightest. "This old man has already said that there is no one here that you want. If you want to fight, then let's fight. This old man has nothing but a saber and a pair of fists. I'll fight with you to the end." The golden-robed elder beside the East Rising Lord said furiously, "My Sacred Sun clan's disciple personally saw your broad Creed Mountains, Yen Zhaoge take that traitorous disciple away. How can it be something that you can evade cleanly with just a few words?" Standing behind Elder Qin, Yen Su had an indifferent expression on his face. "Just because you say so?" This old man can also say that your Sacred Sun clan stole our clan's treasure. Quickly hand it over." The East Rising Lord's eyes shone with a golden light, piercing to the point that Yen Su felt pain all over his body. "Bullshit, you're courting death." Elder Qin took a step forward. "If you want to show off, go back to your Sacred Sun clan's world illuminating peak." Now, Yen Zhaoge's voice resounded from within the manor. Before the East Rising Lord, Broad Creed Mountains, Yen Zhaoge pays his respects here. "In the Luliao Mountains, I indeed clashed with your clan's disciples Xiao Shun and Chao Yuan Long, and also met the Feng Muge that your clan is looking for. However, after that, I no longer had any interactions with Feng Muge," Yen Zhaoge said mildly. "It's just that earlier we chatted, and I learned of some interesting things. For example, a certain sacred ground whose name is spread far and wide in the 8 extremities world actually harbors evil, allowing the grandson of a certain grand elder to defile, and forcibly take possession of a female disciple of the clan. Not being able to forcibly take possession, they instead harbored the culprit, suppressing that female disciple. The most interesting thing is that a certain lustful person really received retribution from the heavens, having his lineage cut off. Yen Zhaoge said, leisurely, "In the future, we won't have to worry about such things happening again." "A bunch of nonsense," the East Rising Lord said coldly, "just based on you slandering my Sacred Sun clan's clean reputation. Even if I kill you here today, no one will be able to say anything. Your father, Yen Di, is unconvinced. Let him come to the world-illuminating peak. Let's see if he can make it to the top alive." Saying thus, he struck out with a palm. Elder Qin laughed grandly. Not being impartial in handling matters, not knowing how to instruct a disciple letting him escape, he had better check himself first. This is still not a place where you can behave atrociously. As the two sides battled once more, the king of the Eastern Tang Kingdom did not say a word as he activated Jingyang City's grand formation, pressuring towards the two simultaneously. Without a doubt, he was naturally siding with Yen Zhaoge. While he could not afford to offend the Sacred Sun clan, he would usually try to maintain a balance in the clashes between the two sacred grounds. However, as this matter involved the only son of his old friend, Yen Di, Zhao Shiqing chose his side without any hesitation, risking the immense risk brought about by the Sacred Sun clan, not intending to sit on the fence at all. The East Rising Lord's gaze was cold. Usually, Jingyang City's grand formation would be completely unable to do anything to him. However, in the midst of his intense battle with Elder Qin now, as he was distracted, the power of Jingyang City's grand formation was displayed. Elder Qin was fighting on his home ground, causing the East Rising Lord, who had originally been evenly matched with him, to fall further and further into a disadvantageous position. Chapter 63. If the Sacred Sun clan wants to find trouble with the Eastern Tang, my broad Creed Mountain will take responsibility for it. The voice of the king of the Eastern Tang Kingdom, Zhao Shiqing, resounded from afar. Elder Qin is too polite. Broad Creed Mountain is the true ruler of the heaven domain. Although Zhao Shiqing could not see it within the manor, Yen Zhaoge stood up and bowed from afar. "I have caused trouble for Uncle." Elder Qin and Yen Su returned to the manor and sat down once more. It is just that the East Rising Lord coming over means that the Sacred Sun clan has yet to treat this matter as an urgent matter. Yen Su said slowly, "What they're concerned about at the moment is the betrayal of their disciples and the fact that they've been taken in by our sect. Rather than a maiden of extreme in roaming outside, she would be more likely to be accepted by my broad Creed Mountain." As he said this, Yen Su looked towards Yen Zhaoge and Feng Yunsheng. Yen Zhaoge nodded. Yen Su's analysis was not wrong, coinciding with his own. Having been jointly diagnosed and examined by the many peak experts of the Sacred Sun clan, all of them had come to the conclusion that her extreme Yin physique was completely crippled, unable to recover. Otherwise, the incident that year wouldn't have happened, and it would be even more impossible for Yen Zhaoge and Broad Creed Mountain to pick up the scraps now. Elder Qin said, "This is a good thing for our sect. This way, the Sacred Sun clan's movements would not be too intense." While they didn't fear the Sacred Sun clan, unless it was absolutely necessary, Broad Creed Mountain also didn't want to start a war with them. A clash between two sacred grounds could very well turn into a situation that no one could control. After all, the Sacred Sun clan was stronger, and Broad Creed Mountain would naturally be more than happy to develop itself, waiting until its strength was more robust before truly contending against the Sacred Sun clan. Therefore, after Yen Su had left, while his attitude had been tough and his actions had not been careless, he had stubbornly refused to admit that his clan had taken in Feng Yunsheng, leaving the Sacred Sun clan a way out of this embarrassing situation. Even Elder Qin, who was even more unyielding and upright, tacitly agreed with this statement. Now that they were united against a common enemy, Yan Zhaoge naturally wouldn't undermine his elder. The Sacred Sun clan, disciple Feng Muge, would naturally no longer have anything to do with him and Broad Creed Mountain. However, the wild maiden of extreme Yin, Feng Yunsheng, was another matter altogether. You said they look exactly the same? The world was vast, and there were all sorts of strange things. It was not the first time he had seen someone who looked exactly like him. She's so beautiful, and she looks exactly the same? That's not impossible, is it? Perhaps they were twin sisters who had been separated since childhood. In short, he didn't have anyone he wanted, but if he wanted to fight, he would fight. I'll give you a ladder. If you go down, then we'll live in harmony. If you don't go down, then we'll fight it out. Yen Su said. In the last Extreme Yin bout, Meng Wan accidentally lost the Extreme Yin crown, which ended up in the hands of Jade Sea City, who was on good terms with our clan but was at odds with the Sacred Sun clan. Their peak experts have previously been in secluded cultivation, not having emerged at all. If it is not an extremely major issue, the Sacred Sun clan would also not wish to clash with our clan to the death in the near future. Elder Qin looked at Feng Yunsheng. The key lies with this young friend Feng. Considering all aspects, it is not suitable for you to continue staying in the Eastern Tang in the East Heaven region. When the people from the clan arrive, they will send you back to Broad Creed Mountain. Elder Qin then looked at Yan Zhaoge. Zhaoge, you return as well. Having suffered a setback this time, the Sacred Sun clan will very likely target you next. After returning to the mountain, focus on helping little friend Feng recover his extreme Yin body. Yan Zhaoge answered. Many thanks for Elder's concern, but I intend to remain in the Eastern Tang for a period of time. There are some things that I still need to prepare for. Sending junior apprentice Sister Feng back to the mountain as soon as possible will suffice. I will return after I have dealt with the matters on hand. During this period of time, I will go out less, keeping a low profile, not giving the Sacred Sun clan a chance. Elder Qin frowned slightly. What other matters do you have? Before Yan Zhaoge could answer, Yen Su said slowly from the side, he indeed still has some matters that he needs to clarify. As Elder Qin looked over, Yen Su said, our clan's disciple Lin Yuxiao met with harm in the Eastern Tang. The perpetrator used was our clan's direct lineage martial art, the Tushita Palm. Lin Yuxiao, this name, if this old man does not remember wrongly, Zhaoge. Elder Qin's tone did not change as he looked back at Yan Zhaoge. Yan Zhaoge's expression was heavy as he nodded, answering, it was this disciple who brought her back to the mountain, recommending her into our clan. Her hometown, like Yijing's, is also the East Heaven region's Eastern Tang Kingdom. Before this, she and I were lovers. At this point, Yan Zhaoge was a little speechless. Lin Yuxiao having met with harm, Yan Zhaoge also felt a little pity. After all, it was a life. Whether her actions were right or wrong, at least it had not reached the point where she had to pay with her life. But strictly speaking, the two had not even spoken a single word to each other. The only understanding they had of each other came from the memories of the body's original owner, just like watching a slideshow. Not counting the memories of the body's original owner, Yan Zhaoge had not even seen her in person. If he said how sad he was, would anyone believe him? But in the eyes of others, the two were lovers. Therefore, Yan Zhaoge could only wear a sorrowful expression on his face as he slowly said, when I was in the Luliao Mountains, I had already received the news. It was only that I had a heavy responsibility at the time, and could only prioritize public affairs over private matters. Now that Junior Apprentice Sister Feng's matter has temporarily come to an end, I request to personally investigate the culprit to comfort Junior Apprentice Sister Lin's soul in heaven. Looking at Yan Zhaoge, Yen Su said indifferently, "In this old man's opinion, it is best that you avoid arousing suspicion." Yen Zhaoge looked at Yen Su, who did not care in the slightest. "There are many rumors over at overlooking Abyss City, all of which are very disadvantageous to you." Frowning, Elder Qin asked, "What rumors?" Yen Su answered, "It is rumored that Yen Zhaoge and another young female disciple, Sikong Qing, grew closer and closer during their trip to the Sealing Dragon Abyss, and are usually very close to each other. It was because of this news that Lin Yuxiao could not sit still and hurriedly rushed over to the Eastern Tang." He did not finish his words, but Elder Qin had already understood what he was implying. This kind of rumor cannot be trusted. Although Lin Yuxiao is of the Eastern Tang, she does not have any enemies, Yen Su said, and Lin Yuxiao died to our clan's direct lineage martial art, the Tushita Palm. He looked at Yen Zhaoge. This old man personally examined her. The one who did it should be an early outer aura martial scholar. The blood-soul recollection ritual can only be used when both parties involved are still alive. If the two parties had already communicated beforehand, harboring the same thoughts, they would still be able to obtain a predetermined result. Therefore, you and your people, as well as this little friend Feng, are all inapplicable. Now that Lin Yuxiao is dead, the dead cannot testify. Yen Su swiveled his head to look at Elder Qin. It is still too early to say anything now, but this old man believes that Yen Zhaoge should at least avoid arousing suspicion. Hearing his words, Elder Qin slowly nodded. Yen Zhaoge, on the other hand, burst out laughing. Frowning, Elder Qin said, "Zhaoge, pay attention to the situation." Yen Zhaoge retracted his smile, nodding his head in all seriousness. "If it's an early outer aura martial scholar, I am already no longer one." Saying thus, he released his aura chi, refining it into a weapon which hovered around his body. Yen Su suddenly stood up, almost flipping over the chair behind him. Yen Zhaoge had not made a move earlier. His aura chi retracted to the point that only now did he discover that Yen Zhaoge had actually already reached the mid-outer aura stage. Chapter 64. How long has it been since he broke through from the inner supreme aura stage to the outer supreme aura stage? Yen Su stared fixedly at Yen Zhaoge, unable to speak for a long time. Was he holding back and hiding his cultivation base all this time? This was the first thought that came to Yen Su's mind. He could not think of any other reason to convince himself of this. Over the years, Yen Su could also be considered to have seen many things, and also having come from a sacred ground like Broad Creed Mountain, he had seen who knew how many geniuses and heroes there were. Even when he was young, he had personally experienced and interacted with many outstanding people of his generation. For Yen Su to be able to reach the level of a martial grandmaster, he was not someone ordinary people could compare to. Since ancient times, he had heard of the experiences of various legendary figures. However, there had never been a person who was able to immediately take another step forward and reach the middle stage of outer invulnerability not long after breaking through from the late inner invulnerability stage to the early stage of outer invulnerability. Yen Zhaoge's father, Yen Di, had shocked the world with his cultivation speed that year, having completed a path that many other geniuses might not be able to complete in their entire lifetimes within a short period of time. However, just looking at the gap between the early and mid-outer aura stages, even Yen Di could not compare to Yen Zhaoge. Although it varied from person to person, there were indeed some people who improved especially quickly in a certain realm or a few realms. Not only were they faster than ordinary people, but their cultivation was also smoother than usual. However, Yen Zhaoge's speed was really too ridiculously fast. It completely overturned Yen Su's worldview and common sense. If Yen Su was like this, then there was no need to even mention the others who knew the truth. All of them were dumbfounded. Those who didn't know the details were also petrified after hearing the explanation. Although there was a saying that geniuses who died prematurely were not considered geniuses. Only those who could truly transform their potential into strength could be considered true geniuses. However, the Yen Zhaoge before them surpassed their understanding by far too much. While it was said that with the great waves washing away the sand, there were only a few geniuses who could truly grow to the heights that they had anticipated. However, with the level of potential that Yen Zhaoge had displayed now, it was really hard to believe that he would die prematurely. Feng Yunsheng watched this scene from the side and felt a lot more balanced in her heart. When she had first learned that Yen Zhaoge had risen from the early outer aura stage to the mid-outer aura stage in such a short period of time, she had also been greatly shocked. Now that there were so many people accompanying her, Feng Yunsheng finally regained some confidence. It turns out that I'm not ignorant. She appraised Yen Zhaoge and muttered in a voice that only she could hear. But no matter how I look at it, it doesn't seem like something a human would do. Elder Qin was also momentarily dazed. Yen Zhaoge's situation was special. Back when he had broken through from the inner aura realm to the outer aura realm in overlooking Abyss City, he had specially reported it to him and the clan. Therefore, Elder Qin had also felt shocked. However, at this moment, Yen Zhaoge's aura chi agglomerated and hovering chi artifact already proved that he had indeed stepped into the mid-outer aura martial scholar realm. Good, very good. Elder Qin took a deep breath and nodded his head. Whether or not Yen Zhaoge had previously intentionally concealed his cultivation, intentionally causing such a great impact, Elder Qin was not concerned about it at this moment. He would slowly investigate this matter in the future. However, to the current broad Creed Mountain, having produced such a dragon amongst dragons who seemed to be able to suppress the other monstrous geniuses, it was undoubtedly a matter that greatly boosted their morale. Yen Su finally came back to his senses and said in a low voice, "An early-stage outer aura martial scholar is unable to fake the attack of a middle-stage outer aura martial scholar. But conversely, it's very easy," Yen Zhaoge said in a tone that was neither salty nor mild. "With a cultivation higher than that of an early outer aura martial scholar, and also cultivating in our clan's Tishadapam, it would be very easy for anyone to do it." Yen Su's eyes gradually narrowed, and the gaze with which he looked at Yen Zhaoge turned icy cold. Yen Zhaoge's expression was calm and composed. "Elder Yan's subordinates have examined the corpse. They should know when junior apprentice Sister Lin was killed." Yen Su immediately reported a time. He looked at Yen Zhaoge. "The time was before you met with Zhao Shilai, Zhao Yuan, Zhao Sheng, and the others. At that time, the only people following you were your followers and her," Yen Su said as he glanced at Feng Yunsheng. "None of them were able to testify for you." On one side was a trusted aide that Yen Di had prepared for Yen Zhaoge. Naturally, she would only obey Yen Zhaoge's orders. On the other side was a request of Yen Zhaoge. She needed him to help her recover her extreme Yin physique and to recommend her into broad Creed Mountain. After silently calculating the time, Yen Zhaoge laughed nonchalantly. "Unfortunately, I just happened to meet this junior apprentice Sister Feng on the road at that time. In order to protect her, I beat up Xiao Shun and Chao Yuan Long. If my men and junior apprentice Sister Feng's words are insufficient to testify, we can seek confirmation from the Sacred Sun clans Xiao Shun and the others." Everyone present suddenly fell silent for a moment. They had all acutely captured the words that Yen Zhaoge had used. From Yen Zhaoge's words, not just Chao Yuan Long, even Xiao Shun had been defeated by Yen Zhaoge. Before this, everyone had all known that the person pursuing Feng Yunsheng had been Xiao Shun, and also knew that in order to protect her, Yen Zhaoge had clashed with the Sacred Sun clan. But thinking about it at that time, it shouldn't have been a head-on clash with Xiao Shun. At most, it should have been a clash with Chao Yuan Long and the other Sacred Sun clan disciples once more. Now that they knew that Yen Zhaoge had already stepped into the mid-outer aura martial scholar realm. Even if he met Xiao Shen himself, he would still be able to protect himself and retreat. It was just that he still had to protect Feng Yunsheng. The difficulty of that was already enough to make everyone sigh in admiration. After all, Xiao Shen was not someone that ordinary late outer aura martial scholars could compare to. But from the looks of it now, the truth had once again surpassed everyone's expectations. Previously, everyone's attention had been focused on Feng Yunsheng's extreme Yin physique, as well as the Sacred Sun clan's subsequent attack. However, they had overlooked how Yan Zhaoge had managed to rescue Feng Yunsheng from Xiao Shen's hands and bring her back to the Eastern Tang. Yan Su stared at Yan Zhaoge. "You said that you defeated Xiao Shen?" Yan Zhaoge acted as if nothing had happened. "Doesn't Elder Yan already know that I have met with the Eastern Tang's Prince Jin, Zhao Shilai, as well as Brother Zhao Yuan and the others? It looks like there are some things that you still haven't had the time to know." Yan Su frowned. "What are you trying to say?" His hands behind his back, Yan Zhaoge smiled slightly. "It's nothing. Anyway, after the matter at hand has been settled, I just happened to be reporting it to Elder Qin. If Elder Qin doesn't mind, with Elder Yan's level, you can listen in." Yan Zhaoge said unhurriedly, "As for whether or not I can defeat Xiao Shen, proving this point is very simple. Actions always speak louder than words. Any one of our clan's late outer aura martial scholars here to spar with me will do." Arrogant. This was the first thought in everyone's minds. Yan Su did not say a word as he stared fixedly at Yan Zhaoge for a moment before swiveling his head to look at Elder Qin. A rather interested expression appeared on Elder Qin's face, but he was instead no longer in a hurry as he sat in his chair, not speaking. Seeing this, Yan Su knew that Elder Qin had tacitly agreed to it. Turning his head, he gave some instructions, and very quickly a burly man walked in. "The two of you can spar here. This old man will protect the house." After Yan Su had finished speaking, he saw Elder Qin shake his head. "The space here is still limited, and the advantage of a late outer aura martial scholar in midair cannot be displayed. Since you want to spar, let's do it outside." Yan Zhaoge smiled slightly. "Actually, there's no difference." Before his words had landed, he exerted force with his feet, and an explosive force erupted.